know
both of
that,
those things. We're YouTubers and we talk about movies.
yeah, we like movies. We like YouTube. We're on YouTube right now. Did you know that it was legal to let filmmakers, sorry, to let YouTubers make films? I didn't know
I
that
didn't know
until
that
very
until
recently.
yeah, until
Thought it was
Markiplier did it.
prohibited.
Really, I mean, I heard there was somebody else who might have made one, but I'm not sure who he is or
His face is Stuckman. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, hello there, find friends in the chat and on the internet. How you doing? I hope you're having a good weekend. I hope you're having a good Sunday. I know I am. The Olympics just started. I love the Olympics, so I'm watching as much of that as I can. The Super Bowl's today, which is also kind of cool. We're gonna go see that, go watch that with some friends, and be really
Oh, I'm
annoyed at all
excited.
the commercials in the halftime show. But hopefully, it's a good
Hey,
game.
that's all
Go
I'm looking for. Go
Patriots!
Patriots! Let's go Pats! Drake May. Let's go.
Listen,
I want to see number 7.
I am literally only rooting for the Patriots because they're called the Patriots, and
Hell yeah.
that's the only reason.
Oh,
But it's a good
well,
reason.
let me give you one more reason. One of their top receivers, his last name is Booty.
You know, that's not bad.
It's
That's
pretty
not a
good.
bad reason.
And
We'll call that like a
the
tertiary reason.
announcers try their hardest to avoid whenever he makes a catch, they try their hardest to avoid the obvious. And Booty was wide open. They don't do it. They never do it. Drake May was looking for Booty. Going
Looking for
deep for
booty, and
Booty.
he finds them.
Finds Booty deep. It's Booty with the deep ball. It's beautiful.
How is booty spelled?
Boutte.
That's pronounced booty?
It's pronounced Booty. Kayshawn Booty.
Well, all right.
And you know what? As far as like he's just fucking with him. Maybe he just told them no Booty because he's funny. And
Yeah,
yeah,
it's possible. It's possible. But
that's what
yeah,
I
go
would do.
Patriots because they're called the Patriots. And if the Patriots win the Super Bowl at this current time, that's a good omen. We like that. We like good omens. Patriots in control. So a couple things already. We got some super chats from Blankface. How very kind. First question before the super chat was, have you seen Mahler's yet? That is, Mahler's got a short film coming out that he wrote. He did not direct it, but this is
Good for him.
part of Critical Drinkers like crowd-funded short film thing that he's doing. I think maybe eventually that will like graduate to feature films. I'm not really sure about that, but Mahler wrote one, and then another guy that I don't know the name of, director, directed it, and I have not seen it yet. Mahler did offer to let me see it early, but he has not sent me that yet. But I'm excited to see it when it does come out. I know they're doing like a premiere in London for it and all that sort of fun stuff. And then eventually it'll come out, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm curious to see how good of a writer he really is, you know?
Yes.
But thank you very much for the super chat, Blank Face. It says one YouTuber movie about a lady in an office where people were acting strange or something. I don't know. There were no explosions or CGI, so I didn't pay attention. You know, that's fair. It was pretty boring. Yeah, but
Dull. Yeah. That I just want to that follow allows for a good follow up chat. Just came in from oiled and lubed phalanx. He asks, did you see Jamie's short film? No, no, I didn't. I don't watch trash.
oh,
No,
so rude.
I actually did help Jamie write it a little bit. I gave him some some tips. Did
Some
some
feedback and all that
feedback on
sort
the
of fun
script and
stuff.
that kind of fun stuff. So I was
Yeah.
very pleased with how it turned out.
But he didn't move to Georgia with me, so he
No,
was not allowed
I
to
was
be
not allowed to be
involved.
involved or named on the screenplay or any of that. But you know what? That's fine by me.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Blank Face, for being the one person who remembers that we did that. We appreciate it. Um, our Blank Face also asks, with the internet and general equipment getting cheaper, I think movies are going to go on the same journey that music has gone through, where any person with a computer, some cash, and creative talent will create art that will reach and inspire thousands, if not millions. Well, that's the most optimistic thing to
Yeah,
wish for, is
that's
the
a
reaching
very
people. The reaching people part is the trickiest bit, right? Because, like you say, filmmaking equipment is getting cheaper. Feature films are still quite expensive to make for the average person who's not made of money, but the equipment is, you can film a movie on an iPhone, and they're shockingly good cameras. All right, there's a lot you can do for pretty cheap, especially if you have friends that are willing to work for favors and all that sort of fun stuff. You have locations, they'll let you film for free because they like you and they're just excited about making a movie. It is cheaper than ever to make movies, but it is not cheaper than ever to get people to be aware of them.
Mm,
That's almost more expensive than ever.
yes.
Because it's not really as simple as taking out an ad on one of the four channels that was on TV. You know what I mean? It's so hard to get people's attention these days. You have to spend a lot of money to even make people aware of the movie you made. So that's the kind of interesting catch 22 or whatever you want to call that. It's cheaper than ever, but it's more expensive than ever to actually get it in front of people. So it's possible, and we'll talk all about how Shelby Oaks did it, how Iron Lung did it, and how some of the other YouTuber movies that we're going to talk about today have done it. But basically, all of them still require quite a bit of marketing. So it's an interesting thing. Well, we're going through a weird time in the film industry. I think there's certainly the possibility of an indie film renaissance, if you could call it that. At this point in time, the ground has been laid. There's fertile ground for such a thing,
Yeah.
but it will take some
It'll take some
shifting in the way.
shifting in the way people think about it and some enterprising groups, with
Oh
those
yeah,
ideas to make it happen.
absolutely. We'll get all into that sort of stuff. But yeah, he was blacklisted. That's true.
He did
Yeah, I
call
found
me.
out
He did call me a lot while I was in the bath. So, you know,
I found out you were a communist and said, "Ooh,
yeah.
I don't know if this is gonna
You
I don't know
all,
if this is gonna work."
with me when it wasn't a typewriter in the bathtub. It was a toaster.
Mm.
So
So yeah, we're gonna talk about what happens when YouTubers make movies today. As you can see, we have Fred the movie on screen, obviously the gold standard for YouTuber turned filmmaker. Fred the movie. Who could forget that? I believe I looked it up today. Yes, it has a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. Pretty funny. That's just because critics, they just don't get us, man. They
wait, which one is that?
just
Is that?
Fred the movie.
Oh,
It's on screen. It's rotating. You see it?
yeah. So I couldn't tell if you were talking about Iron Lung, and it's
Oh no, Iron Lung is
critical
doing
critic.
much better than that. Much better than Fred the movie. It's not hard to do much better than Fred the movie. But so it's an interesting question, right? Because like, what are see, I haven't seen Fred the movie. I know there are many like movies, like technically feature films made by people who got started on YouTube that never really played in theaters, and no one really thought they were any good or they're pretty cheap and all that sort of stuff, right? So I haven't seen most of those. But the more interesting question to me is what are the best movies made by YouTubers of all time? Like what's in contention for that title? Um,
Well,
and I
obviously
think
Shelby Oaks.
obviously Shelby Oaks, obviously. Uh, who couldn't love Shelby Oaks? I'm
I'm
so excited to
surprised.
talk
I'm
about that.
surprised Shelby Oaks didn't earn more nominations than Sinners this year. If I'm being completely honest with you, I mean,
Hmm.
Amelia Perez and Shelby Oaks, two of a kind, two apart.
Already, a couple of people have suggested Zach Kreger, the guy who
Mm.
directed Weapons and Barbarian, who is formerly of Whitest Kids You Know fame. The
He's a little
interesting thing,
pre-YouTube, isn't he? Like, because that was.
so that's it. It depends on how you want to, you know, how you want to think about what qualifies as a YouTuber, right? Because he was a sketch comedy performer, like like improv and sketch comedy performer with the Whitest Kids You Know, who got started doing sketch comedy like live in front of people in New York. They eventually got a show, and eventually the things they made for their show were posted to YouTube. But like, so they that was a huge part of why they got so popular was YouTube. Does that qualify him as a YouTube filmmaker? Maybe.
I,
Um,
I guess it could. One of the what was the were the Whitest Kids You Know sketches posted to YouTube first, or
no, they were. I think it's IFC, whatever channel that they were on. So they
okay.
were on. They're on television, cable
Yeah,
television,
that's
and then
a
they
bit of
were.
a like they were one of the. I think you can probably say certainly they were one of the first to see the potential of YouTube for building an audience.
Yes.
If it was intentional that they did that, right? Like that could have also just been like, oh, I don't know, let's
Happy accident. Yeah. Let's
yeah.
post it there, see what happens kind of thing. But that was a huge part of how they got famous. So I think they're kind of adjacent. YouTube is how they got so big because I don't know how many people were actually watching them on IFC channel or whatever that channel's called. Probably not too many, much more people on YouTube. But so I wouldn't technically count him. If he does count, then he's probably the best. Maybe.
Maybe
But
the Smiling
I
Friends
wouldn't.
guys might be up there.
That's another good
Also,
one. Smiling Friends guys, obviously, they made Smiling Friends the television show, and they got started on YouTube. That's obviously, yeah, they're up there. Other ones that I think maybe not as many people know about. This one people will know about. I think it's the two Australian gentlemen who directed Talk to Me for A24. They also did
oh,
Bring Her Back, but Talk to Me is a much better movie, so I'm going to talk about that. Their channel name is Raka Raka. I don't know a whole lot about the content they make, but they got started on YouTube and they went on to make a feature film, Talk to Me,
yeah, Talk
with
to Me was okay.
A24. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good. That's like a 6 out of 10 movie. That's
Yeah,
pretty good
for
for a
for
YouTube.
YouTube, yeah,
Yeah,
that's not terrible. You're
yeah. Yeah,
that's a
it's
win as
no,
far
it's
as I'm
I
concerned.
think Talk to Me was, it had the production value, it had good performances, the cinematography was pretty good. The story, had some things I didn't quite like about it, but there's a lot of really interesting stuff there. Thoroughly entertaining film,
You see,
and
they're
so
making
that's
a sequel
obviously
to
one of
that.
the better ones. Are they actually making a
I'm
sequel?
pretty sure there's a Talk to Me.
I don't that doesn't feel real.
oh, let me take a look. Uh I think I think that yeah, there is a sequel officially happening.
Um, okay.
Confirmed and in development with A24.
Well, um, I suppose it could be good.
Yep.
That doesn't make me super
And
excited,
they
but
are
maybe it could be
actually
good.
going to do Talk to Me as the title, which,
Well, that's fun.
that's fun.
That's
Good for
fun. I
them.
like that. I certainly like Talk to Me more than Bring Her Back. Bring Her Back was pretty lame. I didn't really enjoy that movie at all. So hopefully they can, return to that level of quality. Other good movies made by people who got started on YouTube. One was mentioned in the chat already. It's a movie called Arctic. It's a survival thriller, drama,
Oh, I haven't heard of
survival
that one.
horror, starring Mads Mikkelsen. I saw that one. It was really good. It
Oh,
was
okay.
legitimately really good. I enjoyed it. It's like a $2 million movie. It's got Mads Mikkelsen in the Arctic, stranded, trying to survive against the elements. It's good. It's the kind of movie where, for example, this isn't spoiling a whole lot, but there's the threat of a polar bear at one point, and I was watching it. I'm like, yeah, this seems kind of like a low budget movie. There's no way they have a budget for a polar bear. And then they did. I was like, holy shit, that's great. They actually had a polar bear. It's a good movie. I think maybe it's the best YouTuber movie.
Okay.
I think there's a strong case to be made for Arctic. It's quite good. Talk to Me's up there, and then the other one, which this one's a little fuzzy in terms of whether it counts. Eighth Grade by Bo Burnham. What do we
Oh
think?
yeah,
Is Bo
Bo
Burnham a
Burnham.
YouTuber?
We were talking about that a little bit. He was already touring as a stand-up, and he had his specials before he started on YouTube. But he did get much more popular through YouTube. Donald Glover might also be an interesting
Yeah,
one to talk about in that
he
because he started on Derek Comedy, right? That was his
true.
yeah,
There's
and
some great videos. There's some great
yeah, they
sketches, man.
did.
There's some
Yeah,
really
they did.
funny stuff. Yeah, so yeah, eighth grade, obviously, he was a comedian who posted a lot of his little funny songs and stuff like that on YouTube, and that was how he got so big. So I think that kind of counts. At least it's adjacent. It counts more than the Whitest Kids You Know guys, I think, because he directly uploaded them to YouTube. He was broadcasting himself, you could say. Um, so I think that counts. And then the Derek Comedy, that's kind of yeah, those were uploaded directly to YouTube. They didn't have a show like Whitest Kids You Know, so I think that kind of counts too. So what did he direct? Did he direct anything in Atlanta, or did he
He's
just
directed quite a few episodes of Atlanta. Yeah. I don't know
That
if
makes
he's done
sense.
any movies, but Atlanta, that's been critically maybe the most successful of all of them.
Did Lonely Island start on YouTube? I don't actually know.
I don't think I thought the Lonely Island started with SNL, didn't they?
I don't know. I don't know enough about them. So there's some like gray area in terms of what counts as a YouTuber. Certainly, the Markipliers of the world are more YouTuber through and through than Donald Glover, for example. But there's some gray area there. But I think if it's up to me, I would say obviously the best YouTuber movie of all time is Shelby Oaks.
Yeah, obvious. I think that's pretty clear. That yeah.
Don't let the title fool you. I know it sounds retarded, but it's actually the best one that's ever been made. Don't let it fool you.
Don't let it fool you. And as out of respect for other artists, we're just not gonna say whether or not we did or didn't like it. But it's definitely a movie, and we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't talk shit.
Oh
So
yeah, right. Sorry, we shouldn't be critical about other movies at all. We learned that from our boy Chris, who you can see on screen, who is telling you to see horror movies in movie theaters.
yes,
You
even if
better
they're
do it.
retarded and not particularly scary or well written, you should do it
Yeah,
either way.
or
Or
interesting.
interesting. That's another thing. Don't worry, don't get caught up in whether or not the movie's interesting or whether or not there's good acting or shot selection or even decent editing. Don't get caught up in whether or not mistakes got made that nobody caught, probably because they couldn't spend the money. Yeah, uh, you know, this pair of movies is going to be really interesting to go side by side with here because they had
They're
a
very different.
very they're very different, but they also had similar budgets. So you can
Yeah,
kind of see, like one of them, $3 million kind of goes a pretty decent way. The other one, you can see where his budget got spread, thin, like butter scraped over too much bread, to quote Bilbo. Um,
it's interesting. So obviously, I talked about this on EFAB yesterday, and so basically, my overall opinion, since we're going to be doing a lot of comparing and contrasting Shelby Oaks and Iron Lung here. Those are the two movies we're going to focus on the most. We'll make reference to Talk to Me and Arctic and all these other movies, but Shelby Oaks, Iron Lung, those are the ones we're going to be talking about more in depth. And basically, I think Iron Lung is better in basically every respect except for the general technical competence that Shelby Oaks has. It's generic, it's not particularly inspired, but it does look a bit more professional. I think really that's the only thing it has over
yeah,
Iron Lung, which is quite remarkable. But they're very different movies, very, very, very different movies. So they're interesting to compare and contrast because, like you said, they had basically the same level of budget, but they went completely different routes in terms of how they were distributed. And so it's a really, really interesting to compare. I didn't watch Shelby Oaks until yesterday because I thought I don't need to see that. There's no need. I know what it's going to be. It looks like the most generic horror slop possible. And I don't particularly like Chris Stuckmann and his work. So, but then, I'm like, it'll be interesting to compare to Iron Lung. So I saw it, and I could not believe how much it sucked. Oh man, it was except for that basic level of technical competence and that like the shots look fine.
yeah.
It looks professional. I wouldn't say it's particularly good looking, but it looks
It
professional. It looks up to professional standards in the modern day,
yeah. If you
which
were to
kind of suck,
Yeah, if
but
you were to say like that was one of the points of praise that I wanted to like give both of these movies. Shelby Oaks a little bit more than Iron Lung, but Iron Lung still looks fine. For the amount that they spent on it, it still looks
yeah.
fine, right?
Yeah, there's like
Both of
there aren't
them,
shots out of focus and like there aren't like technical mistakes or anything like that,
yeah,
really.
both of them manage with like practically minuscule budget compared to some of these other movies that get made. The Mike Flanagan horror movies or the Conjuring movies or things
Yes.
like that. minuscule budgets comparatively, and they managed to look just as competent as any of those, really, like as far
Yeah.
as that goes. That's really where my praise for both of them ends. But it it is nice to see. So when Blankface earlier was talking about the democratization of the film process, I think that's probably the best takeaway you can have of either of these two movies, is that it is possible with what, the kinds of cameras and the talent available that you have now to make a movie that looks measurably, like pretty much competent enough on a
Yeah.
shoestring budget for an indie movie. So, that is something that I think both of them do pretty well. Um,
But the more inspired story here is very much Markiplier's journey with Iron Lung. It's a much more interesting meta story, and it is my favorite bit about this whole thing. I'm much more interested in the story of making this movie and how he went about it than I
yes.
do actually enjoy Iron Lung as a film. I wouldn't say I'm nearly as happy for Chris Stuckman for various reasons, because of their approach was just so different. But we'll talk all about that. I
Yeah.
suppose we should jump into Shelby Oaks first.
Sure, let's
Uh,
do it. When you sent me these graphics for the background, I was like, how am I going to know which one is which? And then I realized this one has a tree. So I think we're good. Yeah, I think I'll realize pretty quickly it's not just the one set. I think we're good. So yeah, Shelby Oaks.
Tell us what you think
Ooh,
about Shelby Oaks. You,
ooh.
what do you,
Um, there's a scene in this. Keith David is in this movie. Um,
can you believe it?
I wonder where exactly half of that $3 million budget went to one scene with Keith David. Um, in his one scene, he pulls out a flask and just pours himself a very generous helping of whatever fire water he of choice he carries around. I do not believe that that was scripted, and I followed suit pretty quickly after seeing him do it. Seal's broken, might as well enjoy ourselves. This movie is unbelievably corny. it's it's really bad. Kind of no, it's not even really that fun, honestly, except in a meta sense, right? Like sitting there
Oh,
kind
I
of,
don't. I really only think there's one fun thing in the entire
yeah.
film, and it's the performance of the obviously evil, creepy old lady at the end.
Yeah,
She's having fun.
she's killing it in this movie, actually. I kind of like I love that actress. I think she is the only one who realizes the kind of movie that she's in, and she brings something to it that I think, like there's a real spark of talent visible there in that woman's performance.
Yeah, I think what I'm noticing more and more is that there are a lot of filmmakers who are just allergic to letting anything about the movie actually be fun and not like, you can find ironic enjoyment in a lot of Shelby Oaks because of how bad it is, but it's genuinely fun how kind of like over the top and a little bit goofy the old lady's performance is when she's like, "Do you want a cracker?"
Cracker?
Like all the like all like her performance is fun. She understands that this is not like a super serious dramatic picture. We can have a little fun with it. And there's a lot of filmmakers who are just kind of allergic to doing that.
When she picks up the cracker in that scene and kind of just goes, huh, like, all right, suit yourself. And then she like kind of dances her way back to her chair. I was like, oh, she knows what's up, man. She's,
Yeah, she's like, "Well, this isn't good, but I'm going to make it interesting. I'm going to make it fun." No
yeah.
one else seemed to be willing to do that. Not even Keith David, who is
Keith David,
usually
what is he supposed to do? His role in this movie is to give like I don't know if
credibility.
yeah, like,
That's
lend some
give
credibility, and
credibility to the
like
movie.
one 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 scene that borders on the stupidity of 28 years later, the people being freaked out by a guy cremating bodies, right? Like his whole everything
You might
he
as well just say
yeah.
it because no one's going to understand what you mean by that.
So okay, so he's a warden of a prison, and the sister of Shelby Oaks is interviewing him, about like this suicide man's role in her sister's disappearance, and he basically goes, "Oh, he was one of the scariest prisoners I've ever seen," and then he goes into this monologue about how there was a terrible riot one night in the prison on his cell block, and it was the freakiest thing. He
It
didn't
was so
leave. It was
spooky.
so spooky. He
It
didn't
was
leave his
so
cell.
spooky.
He just stood there. He just stood there in his cell while this big riot was going on, this horrible riot of the worst prisoners. We called that block the grave because everybody there had one foot in it. But the
Ooh.
only one who didn't join in on the riot was that man. I tell you, I never saw nothing so evil before in my life. What?
He was just standing there
He was just standing there
menacingly.
menacingly. Thanks. Yeah, that's why he poured that big ass helping of whiskey into his coffee. Yeah, oh god, I can't bear to think a bit of it. Him just standing there. Ugh.
I don't know why it should be all that surprising if there's a big riot and people are escaping, that at least one guy would just be a little too afraid to move at all, and that he would just stand there. I don't really think that's that creepy. But Keith David is usually pretty fun as a performer. Um, I don't know why he wasn't more fun in this. It could have really picked things up a bit, but they didn't. They didn't give him anything to do. He could have done it all himself anyway. He could
Yeah.
have like decided, well, I'm going to have fun with it, even if there's nothing really here to work with. But he clearly did not.
He got paid
Uh,
by a fan and he was fine with that. And you know what? Good for him. Right? Like that's the only reason he's there. Chris Stuckman clearly likes him. They reached out to him and he said, "You're going to pay me how much? For that? Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, I'll show up.
yeah. So
You got me for 10 minutes."
we're shooting it at my house. Um, it's interesting because okay, so for those who don't know how Shelby Oaks gets made, Shelby Oaks is a script that apparently Chris Stuckman has been working on for 10 years,
What?
which is just so unbelievably embarrassing.
10
Just as a point
years
of
for this? 10
just as a
years?
point I know, I know. Just as a
Holy
point
shit.
of contrast, there are some writing problems with Iron Lung, but basically all of the writing problems in Iron Lung stem from just what are already baked into the premise of the video game. So like you can't really blame Markiplier too much for those unless you think he ought to have changed a lot of the basic premise of the video game. So honestly, Markiplier looks much better as a writer by comparison. But yeah, he had been working on Shelby Oaks for a very, very long time. He's developing it along with another filmmaker who owns a small production company, and then they do a Kickstarter campaign. It is one of the most, it's the biggest Kickstarter campaign for an independent horror movie, I think, of all time. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it is over $1 million. Pretty good. And then they went off and made the movie. And then they had a little premiere at Fantasia Fest or whatever. Somewhere in there, they acquired distribution through Neon, an independent film distribution company. We'll talk more about them later. But Neon was like, hey, hey, we like the film. It's cool and all. Oh, I should probably mention Mike Flanagan also gets involved at some point. His production company gets involved probably around the same time
Yeah.
that he acquires distribution. And Neon and Mike Flanagan and all the other people giving him advice are like, hey, there's a couple places where it looks like maybe, there are things that were in the script that you didn't film. Why is that? And he's like, oh, we didn't really have the budget for it. And he's like, okay, well, how about we give you some extra money? You shoot a couple extra scenes, make it a bit more gory. And hey, maybe we can find, a more recognizable face to put in the movie because that will help with it. So they probably had a conversation about who would be interesting to get, and then he probably said Keith David because who doesn't love Keith David? And they're like, cool, we'll shoot a scene where he comes in, gives a really uninspired performance, saying a bunch of useless information that doesn't really affect the story at all, but at least he's in the movie, and hey, now you have Keith David in your movie, and and that's how that happens, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Sure.
It's just it's so amazing how different the approach was between Iron Lung and this, because I think if you had to put it in a nutshell, um, Markiplier was just really interested in making a movie like truly independently and then just getting it out to people. And just because he wants to make things. That's obvious in the way he talks about it. He liked this video game a lot, was really
God knows
intrigued by
why, but
it.
yeah, he was inspired.
He's inspired. He liked it. He liked all the spooky Lovecraftian existential horror space stuff. And he's like, I'm gonna make a video game adaptation feature film of Iron Lung, and I'm gonna do it all myself, and I'm gonna fund it myself,
I'm gonna
and
fund
then
it
I'm gonna
myself, and I'm
put it
gonna
out,
direct it myself, and I'm gonna be in it myself.
and I'm gonna distribute it myself and put it out in theaters directly to the audience, and they're gonna go see the movie. And it worked out for him.
It
And
worked
Chris
out really well for
Stuckman
him too because he has a lot of goodwill with his audience. I think that's something that Chris Stuckman maybe
does not
does
have.
not have, like, and might have overestimated
Yes,
pretty
certainly he did.
strongly on this one. Yeah.
Certainly he did. Meanwhile, Chris Stuckman, it's completely crowdfunded from his fans. And then he goes about basically Chris Stuckman's approach in a nutshell is he just wants to do it in the most legitimate way that makes him look the most like a legitimate filmmaker,
Yeah.
regardless of what's best for the audience, what's best for him, what's best for the movie. He's just like, no, we're gonna go with like a real distributor, and we're going to like, oh my gosh, we got Mike Flanagan's name on it. Honestly, when Mike Flanagan's name popped up in the credits in like the title sequence of this movie, I laughed pretty hard because this movie sucks, man. I don't know why he put his name on this. Like, this is much worse than
Than,
even
yeah,
his worst
anything
project.
anything that he's ever
I
put
don't
out. Yeah.
understand what he saw in this. I really don't. But in terms of performances, right? I saw someone in the chat. Can you imagine trying to deliver a good performance with Chris Stuckman giving you direction? No, I can't. And I think this is my little bit of advice for anyone who wants to be a director, right? I think because of the way people talk about directors in popular culture, I think people have a little bit of a warped idea of what the main job of a director really is. A lot of people think, oh, it's have a very distinct visual style and have unique sort of filmmaking call signs and things like that. Like, oh, with Wes Anderson and his like center framed stuff, and Quentin Tarantino and
And his
his
feet.
needle
Yeah.
drops and blood and feet and all that sort of stuff. Um, but really, really, what your job is as the director is to get good performances from the actors. That is like the thing. If you can't do that, you can't be a good director because that is 90% of it.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're a
Because
glorified camera op. Yeah, like you're a
well, yeah,
glorified DP.
yeah, but no, but I mean, like, you don't need to know how to get good shots if you have a good DP.
Yeah.
You
No,
can, you
exactly.
can,
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm
you
saying.
can, you. I mean, that's what to the degree that there's a basic level of filmmaking competency in Shelby Oaks. It seems like it's largely the team around him. You know, it's just like, oh, this would be a good camera angle. We'll do a little dolly move here. We'll do a little push in. Basic stuff, but effective to a degree. But like the writing is obviously him because he wrote
Yeah,
it,
he
so
wrote
that's
it.
all. That's all him. But the performances, like only one person gives a good performance in the whole movie, and it's that creepy old lady at the end. I
Yeah.
think the main actress kind of sucks, but I don't really feel like she would be bad in anything. Just that she's bad in this because the
Well, because like
director
what is
sucks.
yeah, and the material is not good. There are
That
multiple
yeah.
lengthy shots of her reacting to a video that is clearly not in front of her, right? Like it's like the Joaquin Phoenix in Signs reaction to what's being to
Yeah.
there are multiple, like two or three versions of that scene happen in like with her, and it's just you get the feeling that she's just happy to be there because she thinks this is gonna. She's like, okay, this is a real movie where I'm on a real production. There's a real chance that somebody sees this. Maybe I get a break. I get like I get a little bit. I build my resume. We get pushed forward a little bit here. I don't think she's the kind of actress who's like asking questions of the director, like being like, hey, what is my character's motivation here? Like, wouldn't I I don't know, wipe the blood of the suicide victim off my face before I like, after this all
Yeah.
happens? I don't like we're just gonna she would just leave that here. She's not the kind who's pushing back and bringing anything really. She's doing what she thinks he wants.
Yeah, I
You know.
mean, I think that's a fair assumption. It's hard to know exactly what this dynamic was in terms of what but I tend to blame the director for bad performances more than I blame the actor, unless the actor is consistently bad in everything.
Yeah.
I will almost always blame the director because I think really truly talented directors. We talked about this when we talked about Marty Supreme. So, Josh Safdie can get a great performance out of people who have never acted before in their lives, and he does it pretty consistently.
Yeah.
Right? He gets great performances out of everybody, and that's the real skill of directing, as far as I'm concerned. Beyond being able to communicate your vision to other people who can make it happen for you. It's actually being able to get the good performances out of the actors, right? And there are basically no good performances in Shelby Oaks. Even people who you know to be good, like Keith David, are not especially good. And so it's like, yeah, I just don't think you have really, really any talent for getting good performances out of actors. I'm not seeing it in this movie anyway. Like it feels like the old lady at the end was just kind of goofing off and
She's a
they
one-off.
decided to
Yeah.
keep it in.
She's a
Yeah.
one-off.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. There's a lot of technical mistakes in this as well. Yeah, there's a scene where she sees, a hellhound wandering around her front gate, and the editing in that scene is legitimately horrible. They make a terrible, terrible cut very jarring, very jumpy. It's nowhere else in the movie, so I know that it was just a mistake, and they all
Yeah.
missed it, right? Probably because he ran out of budget by that point in post production, and he just had to get something out for his distributors, right? But like,
I can't remember the scene you're talking. I believe you, but I don't remember the
she
scene
goes
you're
to
talking
stand
about.
up, and it cuts away from her it cuts away as she's standing up, and then the scene it cuts to, she hasn't started standing up yet, so there's a
Oh,
full like second of just blank, like the house, and then she jumps up into frame, and
oh,
it's
okay.
a really poor choice. Like, it just one
Like
of
a
those.
really just continuity error, like
Yeah.
fundamental basic kind of
Yeah.
continuity
Yeah.
error. Yeah, that's interesting. Before we get too far ahead and I miss it, someone did a good job of encapsulating what I was trying to say. Mr. Redhead says Chris Stuckman is someone who wants to be part of the big club he'll never be allowed into, while Markiplier is just doing it for the love of the game.
Yes.
Yes,
And
that
you
is
can
it.
definitely feel that from,
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. I mean, maybe Chris Stuckman would be let into the club if he, made like another mildly successful movie in the future. But that is clearly what he wants. He wants to be let into the club. He wants to be seen as, I am a filmmaker, Mr. Han. That's what he wants more than anything. Um,
Yeah, I like
from you.
that's something that you can really feel too, like the difference between these two movies, right? Is that they're like, and funnily enough, given that Chris Stuckman's story about how the script for this came about and the motivation behind it, right? There is so much more authenticity and effort you can feel in Iron Lung, an adaptation of a pretty boring video game, than in Chris Stuckman's 10-year passion project,
Yeah,
partly
man.
inspired by his sister's experience with leaving the Latter-day Saints.
No, Jehovah's Witnesses,
Jehovah's
but yeah.
Witnesses, right? Okay, sorry, the cult, the actual cult, not the. Well, they're both cults anyway. But anyway, okay, his part, like this should be far more passionate.
You would think so. You
Like,
certainly would think so.
you should be able to feel that. There is none of that on screen. Absolutely none.
No, it's full of things that feel like, "Oh, why is this in here?" "Oh, because that's what you do."
Yeah.
He has in the past been very vocally critical about jump scares. There's about 4 or 5 of them in this movie. Why? Because that's what you do. Every choice feels like it was done for that reason. And it's like, he can say that this was inspired in part by his sister leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses. Obviously, he left the Jehovah's Witnesses as well, and he was sort of like he made a video about it. It's the only good thing he's made as far as I'm concerned. It was a really interesting video talking about how he had to they sort of cut him out of the family because he decided he didn't want to be a Jehovah's Witness anymore. And so that's a real interesting part of his life, and you would hope that would factor into the story. And I could see how it was maybe the jumping off point. Um, it certainly does not stick the landing, but I feel like every decision made along the way was not in service of that as an idea, as a like a sort
Oh,
of guiding light. It's more like, oh, this is what you do because this is what horror movies are. And I want to be seen as a guy who makes horror movies,
yeah,
real horror
yeah,
movies that
real
play in
horror
theaters.
movies that play in theaters. But so there, there was a okay. If you're not familiar with it, right? The movie starts off with like a documentary style, right? Like almost, and for a
Found
while,
footage, yeah.
found footage. Well, found footage, but no, it's
No,
documentary.
you're right. You're right. There's found footage in the documentary, but
Yeah,
it's in a Netflix documentary style.
yeah. Like Netflix is making a documentary based on some found footage, right? And in
Yes.
theory, I can get behind that. I think that
Sure.
that's an interest. That would be an interesting way to
Do the
do
whole
the
movie.
whole found footage movie, right? Like if you were going to do that. That goes on for about what, like 15, almost 20
I think
minutes?
it was 17 minutes
17
because I
minutes.
looked. Yeah.
Yeah, almost 20 minutes. That goes on. And then it completely changes tone and
Hmm.
immediately goes into just your sort of run of the mill generic horror slop.
I mean, yeah, yes, but even describing it as run-of-the-mill generic horror slop, it feels like it's underselling it. It is literally the most derivative horror slop
Yeah.
imaginable. It's not even it's remarkable how slop it is. Like every decision. Like at the very end, oh, she goes into the creepy old house and there's a creepy old lady and there's black mold all over the walls and it's dimly lit and it's gross. And then, oh, upstairs, she's got like a weird demonic cult thing that's a ripoff of like Rosemary's Baby and Hereditary and what are the other ones? There were so many other things that it's all derivative of. It's a
Yeah.
little bit of True Detective. It's just,
Yeah, there's True Detective in there too, with the stick the little stick designs
yeah.
and the
None of this in a good
yeah.
way, by the way. These aren't like
The
it's
photos with the antler crown and everything and like
yeah.
it's so just soulless. Just
Oh yeah.
soulless copies of things that he was like, "Oh, I like that. I'm gonna do something like that." Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because people like that, and if I combine, yeah, there was there's a book that I've read before on screenwriting called The Anatomy of Story. That if you're interested in screenwriting, I think that one is one of the most helpful I've ever come across. In the very first chapter, what the author John of that book, John Truby, says is like there are a lot of screenwriters who think they have a great idea, right? They have seen a few things that they really like and they want to imitate, and they just kind of slap them all together because they figure, oh, it works in that, it'll work for
Yeah.
me. And that is the ultimate sign of an amateur when it comes to like writing anything. And the fact that he
Yeah.
says he spent 10 years on this script just to have that, like, it's blatant.
Yeah.
If you've ever been watched any of the popular horror like movie zeitgeist films, right? Or shows, you'll know what this comes from immediately.
Yeah.
It terrible. it's
It's
it
worth probably distinguishing between how this sort of thing can be done well and how it's done incredibly amateurly. You take someone like Quentin Tarantino, right? And his movies are a collage of references to other films.
Mhm.
Take any of his movies, Django Unchained. He's like taking the name from another movie, he's taking music from it, but like all these specific shots, this is a reference from this movie. But because it's a couple things. He has a breadth of knowledge of films that he can pull from. So you don't recognize every reference. A lot of things you wouldn't even assume are references to other
Well, and he
films.
does it in a different way, and almost like there are similarities when you go and like if you go and watch the movies that he's inspired by, you'll notice the similarities. Like the Kill Bill is one that comes to mind for me. The big fight with all the ninjas in the house of the House of the Blue Leaves, or the Thousand Leaves. That fight is very clearly inspired by Sword of Doom, right? The ending of Sword of Doom, but it's different. It has his
Yes.
spin on it. Like there's he knows what he's taking and he knows how to do it in a way that makes it more his angle.
Not
This does
just
not have
putting
that.
not just putting his own spin on it, but what I was building to here is that I think the fundamental thing that needs to happen Because I think basically, even if it's not as blatant as someone like Quentin Tarantino, that is how everyone writes to a degree.
Yeah.
They're pulling things, but not just from other movies, but from their lives and whatever stories that they hear from family and friends, all that sort of stuff. That is basically how everyone writes. They take all the little things that they've collected, but importantly, they have to put them into something that is more than the sum of its parts.
Yes.
There has to be something, a through line, a sort of like guiding light, a foundational idea or principle that unites all of these things together into one thing. Because Shelby Oaks is not really one thing. It's completely incoherent as a story. It is a loose collection of things that horror movies do, not united by anything.
Yeah.
And it could have been. It needs some pretty big rewrites, but all the kind of things horror movies typically do, if they were united in a story that was really, truly guided by like the idea of leaving a cult, leaving a sort of tyrannical religious group, like that could be how he did it, but he didn't. Shelby Oaks is not more than the sum of its parts. It's less
Yeah.
fundamentally,
Uh,
because that's what art is. Art literally comes from a Latin root meaning the fitting of things together, right? So when an artist's job is to take all these little things and actually unite them into one coherent thing. And so that's what Quentin Tarantino at his best is really, really good at. You know, it's a collage of references, but the full picture is its own unique thing that isn't really like anything. You know what I mean? You
yeah.
know, like there are a lot of references to other movies in Kill Bill, but there really is no other movie like Kill Bill. It's its own thing, and it's united by what at its core a really good and really dramatic story.
Yeah, you know what this movie really reminded me of is a little indie feature that you might have heard of, Jamie, called "Don't Sleep."
Why don't you tell the five people about Don't
Don't
Sleep?
Sleep. Don't Sleep is a movie that I worked on in my brief time in living and working in Hollywood. Done by a director named Rick Bieber, and it's I was brought on very early on because it had a lot of producers and they were all trying to get you know some ideas pushed through because the script was not working, right? I came on to help the guy with some notes, do a little doctoring, and give it a little bit of give it a little bit of flair. My exact instructions were we make this a little Marvel-y, right? Like because this was back at the time when Marvel was actually good and kind of soaring, so they really wanted to imitate something like that, and they saw an opportunity. They're like, oh, this guy's young, he knows Marvel, right? So I did a little bit of work on it. None of the notes really made it in to the final. Like none of the rewrites or anything made it in. They didn't want to to give me any writing credit or anything because he wanted it to be his project and his baby. And the Writers Guild has very strict rules on how to
What percentage
yeah,
of
what percentage of a script you have to contribute in order to be credited, and they deliberately made sure that I was not above that percentage to make sure that it was all him as the writing credit. Um, and when you watch it, which you shouldn't, but if you do, because it might be free now. I'm not really sure where it's streaming. You'll notice that it's just a collection of horror tropes that the director saw in other movies and thought were good. They don't congeal into one coherent whole at all. They're just there because that's what horror movies do. That's why you put that in horror movies because that's how you make horror movies. Duh. Like haven't you seen every horror movie ever? You have to have this scene. And it's like, okay, but motivationally, why does it do that? And he's not interested in talking about that whatsoever. No, you don't watch the movies, man. I do. I know movies. I was a producer on Flatliners. Have you ever heard of
Oh.
it?
And by the way, Don't Sleeps. Oh God, what's his name? Keith David.
Oh,
Don't
Carrie
Sleep. Keith
Elways.
David is Carrie Elways. Yeah,
Yes.
that's their
Carrie
like. Oh,
Elways
we got a
doing a
real
strange
actor.
Batman voice for some reason. Yeah, I a perfectly lovely man. Working with him was a joy. Don't know why he did like don't know why he decided that the Batman voice was the move, but he brought
Well, he
that to
was
the
having
table.
fun. He
And
was
yeah,
just trying
he was
things,
trying things.
because he understood that this movie was that it sucked and was going nowhere. So he's like, I'm going to entertain myself by doing a Batman voice.
Yep. Yeah. So
Anyway, yeah, it is a lot like Don't Sleep, which you did show me, and I was like, yeah, that was awful.
yeah, yeah. You'll see my name pop up in the Swing Gang credit on the end of the
Ooh,
film.
Swing Gang, the
Yeah.
most generic credit possible.
The most generic credit possible. Well, and like I told you about what happened the overnight shoot that I did, right? When we were out in the
You
woods.
probably did, but I don't remember.
So he had hired a special effects director from a house and two PAs or three PAs, me and two other guys. The director, the special effects director, shows up with two smoke machines and goes, "All right, here's what we're doing because this is a dream sequence out in the woods, right? You're just gonna pump a bunch of fake, a bunch of fog onto the scene." And we're like, okay, cool. We hooked it
So
up.
far,
We
so
take,
good.
yeah, so far so good. Yeah, we know our job, right? At one point, this guy calls me over. He goes, "Hey, Hugh, come on over here. I want to show you what I'm looking at." Right? He takes me behind the camera. He goes, "Okay, so you see this? When you see it this way, and you hear Rick say, 'I need more smoke,' you get on the walkie and you say, 'Okay, more smoke, please.'" I was like, "All right." And he goes, "All right. And if you see it this way, it's too much." And Rick says, "Ah, we need a little less." You get on the walkie and you say, "Less smoke, please." Like, okay. He goes, "All right, you seem like you got a handle on this. I'm going to go home and get some sleep." And he just slaps me on the back and walks away. And I became the special effects director for the evening. Um,
That's pretty funny.
yeah.
That's a very LA thing to
Oh,
do.
yeah.
Like that, like an LA film professional is like, this movie sucks. It's not worth
It's
the
not worth
it's
me
not
being
worth the
up.
money.
It's like, because we started at 6 p.m. and we didn't end until 7 a.m. the next day. And he was like, "Yeah, fuck
That's a
that.
night shoot for you.
He's like,
Absolutely.
"Fuck that. I'm going home."
Yeah. You can handle more smoke, less smoke, right?
Yeah, you can handle this, right? Sure. Go ahead. You got it, buddy. You got it. That was also the night
Very good.
the caterer put all of the food for the evening on a collapsible table behind all the cars. And when I got told that
Oh no.
I got told I
Oh
needed to
no.
leave to go pick up some prosthetics, and from a house in Burbank, which was 40 fucking minutes away, right? So I get the producer's car, hop in it. I'm like, it's a Prius, one of the old Priuses. So the hatchback is way too high for me to see out the back. The sun is directly in the back camera, and I start backing out, and I hear a thunk. And I'm like, "What the hell is that?" And I get out and I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me, dude. Like, why did you set it up here? The food is everywhere, all over the ground." The guy comes out and he's like screaming at me. He's like, "Come on, you're killing me here, buddy." I'm like, "Why would you put it here? What did you do? The table was empty when I got in the car. Why did you put the stew pot on the thing?" Come on, man. Uh,
That's movie magic for you.
yeah. Movies. Steven Spielberg. Unprompted.
Anyway, Shelby Oaks, like you said before, it starts as a Netflix style documentary, and I think it would certainly have made the movie more interesting if you committed to that the whole
Yeah.
time.
It would have made it more interesting, although one of the first things I messaged you while I was watching it is like, he did not nail this at
No, I
all.
mean he didn't. He didn't nail any part of it, but theoretically, this would make a more interesting movie. He didn't. No, because like when you see in Shelby Oaks like local news segments or people on their phones or like people recording in their cheap tape cameras and uploading them to YouTube and all that sort of stuff, none of it feels very real or authentic. Especially the local news broadcasts, they feel
Oh,
incredibly
yeah.
fake.
Because it's
Incredibly
supposed to have
fake.
happened back in the early days of YouTube, right?
Yes.
They talk about it as if it was 2026 or 2025
Yeah,
when
I'll
they
give
filmed it.
you I'll give you a good example. There's a line in Shelby Oaks where a news broadcaster says like the
The
YouTube.
hosts of the popular YouTube
Yeah,
show Paranormal Paranoids have been missing for 5 days.
yes. And it's like, okay, first of all, any local news broadcast at the time would have to explain what YouTube is to their viewership. All right. They
Yeah,
wouldn't say the host of the popular YouTube show. They would say five local teens have gone missing. They were part of an online internet show on youtube.com. Like that's how they would talk about it. right? Because they wouldn't. No one watching local news at the time that this takes place would have any idea what a YouTube show is. And they would have to explain it. They would say five local teens. They were part of a show that was on the internet, and the people watching would be like, "Oh, I didn't know they had shows on the internet." You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Real quick, by the way, I just want to pause for a second because Mr. Redhead is saying the only time I worked on set for a movie was when the filmmakers were filming a closed set sexual assault scene. Awkward as all hell. Well, another
Oh
fun
yeah,
story from Don't Sleep. We had 3 of those.
three of. Oh God, that's too many.
We had 3. Yeah. Drea DiMatteo was in that one too, and she, oh God, ugh. Yeah, it refused to cut any of them. So if you do watch it, there are 3. Just be aware.
Well, how would we describe that? The director's barely disguised fetish.
We argued with him a lot over how to not include like we're like, one of them has some ramifications for the story.
Sure.
Maybe you just get rid of the others. And he says, why? Like, because it's really uncomfortable and kind of weird. And he goes, good. It's supposed to be. Like,
Oh,
oh,
it's the classic. It's the
oh,
classic pervert excuse.
yeah.
Yeah,
Bet you,
it is
Rick,
interesting.
if you're watching, fuck yourself.
Rick, I know you're watching.
I know
Longtime
you're
fan of the
watching.
show.
Long time
Fuck
fan of the
yourself.
channel. Fuck yourself.
Yeah, obviously sexual assault scenes are especially awkward, but sex scenes often very, very awkward on film sets as well. And you mentioned that it was a closed set. Yeah, they do that a lot, where they're like, okay, only the minimal amount of people that we like actually need stay in the room. Everyone else get the hell out. Very common thing to do nowadays. And then everyone else just kind of sits in the in the hallway quietly, just like staring at the floor. It's strange. But that's movie magic for you. Anyway, so like you said, he didn't really do a good job of making that documentary style feel real. It didn't feel like a real or
No.
good Netflix documentary, but at least that's more interesting than everything that came
It
later.
felt like a film student doing it. Like when a
It
film
certainly
student
did.
tries to make that kind of movie, they have a particular tone, and that like it. I mean, it looked just like it. It looked like Mike Flanagan presents a fake Netflix documentary from when he was in college. So like, yeah,
Yeah. And it's full of very redundant information. So Shelby Oaks, the plot is that, oh, and her name is not Shelby. I wish it
or Oaks.
was.
Yes, no. Shelby
Or
Oaks is the town she went to visit, like like the Blair Witch Project. The Blair Woods
yeah.
in Blair.
Okay, before we talk about the premise, the title is terrible. Does anyone dispute that?
I don't
The
think so.
Shelby
No.
Oaks is an awful title for a horror movie. It sounds really stupid. The Red Letter Media guy said it sounds like a retirement home, and I could not agree more.
Yeah.
And if it was a movie about a retirement home, Shelby Oaks would actually be a pretty good title.
Yeah.
But
Or if it was or if it was like her name, maybe you could make that like if her name is Shelby Oaks and like it's about her, right? Maybe you can make that work. I would prefer you pick a different name. I was kind of confused when they were like, "Oh yeah, no, her name is Riley. The other one's name is Mia." Shelby Oaks is a town, actually, like a dead town in Ohio. Uh, okay.
yeah.
That's a pretty bad name for. I don't think they would have
So
picked that too.
Riley Brennan, the person who goes missing, not the main character, who is Mia Brennan, her sister, but Riley Brennan is the host of a YouTube paranormal investigation show with her friends called Paranormal Paranoids. Now, there's an interesting idea here about like, oh, something really spooky happens to people who are making that kind of content that everyone, was enjoying, but a lot of people assumed was fake, but then something real happens to them. There's certainly an idea there. And if you're going to call them the Paranormal Paranoids, which is a really silly
Really,
name,
yeah, dumb name.
but that could work if the movie was funny.
Oh
If
yeah,
this
no
was like,
humor whatsoever.
a,
I'm
no.
actually also kind of confused as to what any of them do. Really, like, because the paranormal
The other
paranoids
members of
thing,
the
the other
team.
members of the channel, right? Because like,
Yeah.
if you're gonna do that, you would if you like a fake ghost hunter show, for example, right? You would
Hmm.
probably want, oh, here, if you're gonna introduce, say, I don't know, a cast of 5, right? Um, this guy handles the equipment. This is the guy who has the spectrograph or the little, like Geiger counter that goes off when a ghost comes
Yeah.
near to
I
sing
mean,
to Demi Lovato. Like this one carries the boom mic. This is the guy, like this one has a microphone set up. Like these are, but all they do, all 4 of them or 5 of them, really, like one of them holds the camera and the others just walk around with flashlights in
yeah,
these
okay,
abandoned
so I
places.
assume the justification is that, like, they're friends who all have a similar interest in this sort of thing, and so they all do it together, and that's really the long and short of it. Obviously, there is one guy who operates the camera, because someone's gotta be operating the camera, but really, she's the star of the show because she's the one who, like, pretends to, well, not pretends, because in the logic of the story, she's not wrong, but she's like a clairvoyant to a degree, and she gets, bad feelings, and she had dreams when she was a kid that end up manifesting later in the story. So she's like the star of the show because she gets spooky feelings. She has the shining, essentially. And so they're investigating, derelict buildings and like the dead town of Shelby Oaks, eventually, like abandoned prisons and all that sort of fun stuff. And eventually they all go missing. Ooh.
Ooh.
What
And
happened to him?
who knows what happened? Well, because at the beginning of it, right? It says like, oh yeah, in 2007, the hosts of the YouTube channel Paranormal Paranoids, they went missing in Shelby Oaks, Ohio. Here, this is the last footage, right? And I'm like, okay, Blair Witch, that's what we're doing. Fine, found
Sure.
footage, yeah, whatever. And then it's like, oh, okay, Netflix documentary. Like it's like Blair, like we're watching the
A documentary
documentary
about,
about the
yeah.
Blair Witch Project. Okay, all right, yeah, yeah, yeah. What could possibly have happened to them? Well, they were murdered. We answered that question pretty quickly.
Yeah.
They were murdered.
Yeah, so the long and short of it for Shelby Oaks is that nothing about the story works because of 2 things. If the cops were competent in the slightest, if Mia was competent in the slightest, I suppose it's 3 things. Because the last one is, if any of the people who are supposedly very, very invested in this story on the internet, fans of the YouTube channel or people who came to be fans or interested in their disappearance as like a, as a story on the internet, if any of them had investigated competently in the slightest, they would have found out that they were murdered and where they were murdered within like a week
Yeah,
tops.
yeah.
There's really no
Because
excuse. There
they're
is no
just in
justification.
they're just in a cabin in Shelby
Yeah, they're
Oaks,
in Shelby Oaks, the last place they were seen. Yes,
and it
and
takes
it's the
5
only.
years to find them. It's like,
It's awful. It's awful. Fundamentally broken. There's no excuse for it at all. Later, for example, Mia will find a clue and she won't trust the police to do anything about it because they haven't solved this case. And it's like, the police are incompetent, sure, but so are you.
yeah,
And
I don't
so
know
is
why you think,
literally
yeah.
everyone. So I don't know why you're especially anti police because everyone's stupid. Everyone should have been able to solve this immediately. Fundamentally, as a mystery story, it is broken beyond
Riley has
repair.
been kidnapped and living in like a cell under the basement of a different cabin, like mobile home in Shelby Oaks this whole
The
time.
Okay, so to be clear, there are signs that are found associated with the disappearance. Spooky, occult, pagan-looking signs. It's like a triangle pointing down and a triangle pointing up. Supposedly, the mark of the incubus. We'll talk
We'll
about
talk
whether
about,
Chris
yeah, whether
Stuckman knows anything
understands.
about what an incubus is. We'll get to that. But there are creepy, pagan, occult signs associated with the disappearance in this derelict town, which is the last place they were seen. There is only one person who still lives in this dead town. And she has a whole bunch of those like stick things forming that symbol in her yard. And if you checked literally the only house, if you checked with the only resident of the town where they disappeared, you would have found them immediately.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yep. There's a couple of comments also that are saying things like, well, if they were just teenagers who hang out and do this thing, they wouldn't necessarily have designated roles. And I don't agree. Like if they're because they're not just teenagers who hang out and do this and like go to abandoned places because they think it's fun. They're making YouTube videos investigating the paranormal. You would think at least one of them would take some initiative in finding ways to investigate, right? Like you can give them character. They don't have to just
Oh, they
be
don't have any character.
yeah,
They're
like they
just
don't have to just be like generic teenagers who get killed off screen and then are like get like why did you even pay them to be here at this point, Chris? Really? Like there's so much that you could have done without five teenagers. Like
yeah, you could have given them a little bit more character, but beyond, there's one guy who films.
yeah.
That's really it. Like, and to the degree that they get any character, it doesn't really make any sense because they should be perfectly on board with Riley. But like, when she gets a really bad feeling about a particular place and she's like, I don't think we should go over there, they're like, ugh, again? It's like, wait, I thought you guys were close. I thought you guys knew, like, understood each other.
Yeah.
Apparently not. And like, they're to the degree they're characterized at all, it doesn't make a ton of sense. It's not super believable, and they're just kind of fodder to be murdered. They're
Yeah,
not
but
really.
they're not even like he doesn't even really like do the slasher movie thing where you kind of take some glee in the goofiness of killing people on screen in a horror movie. They just
Yeah,
die off screen and then they're out of the movie. Like they
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's it's a waste. If you're gonna do a
It is a
movie
waste.
about like a group of teenagers who disappeared investigating the paranormal, right? Like really the only one narratively who matters that she disappeared at all is Riley.
You think it might even be slightly more interesting if they, if they didn't die, but only Riley disappeared.
Yeah, like if one of them had survived and was in, like an institution or something like that, or like wandered out of the
That's one
woods.
way,
Give
if
me
they
a
witnessed
Ronette
it.
Pulaski here, somebody to point to give us some clues, right? Like,
That's that's one approach, or or she disappeared without any of them knowing anything about it. But obviously, people would suspect them as well, or think they're doing it as some fake thing. There's a lot
yeah,
of things you can do. But no, he doesn't. Basically, this is to the degree there's any potential in this premise and in like the general format, it's all completely wasted. And fundamentally, it's just broken as a mystery story. It just doesn't work. It does
yeah.
not work at all. It's especially when you realize at the end, like, oh, it was just the obviously creepy old woman
In the
who is the
obviously
only
creepy
person.
house, who's the only person who lives in the town where they disappeared. It was obvious. It was her the whole time. Okay.
Oh, oh, I guess it was. And so what actually does happen in the movie? We'll spare all the like boring suspense scenes where she has to like research the mark of the incubus and all that. So we'll come back to the incubus question. But like what actually is the threat of this movie? Well, it turns out that there's a demon and the creepy old lady is trying to like summon the demon to impregnate Riley Brennan so they can give birth to a special Rosemary's Baby demon child type thing.
Yeah. Um that's where it ends up, right? And like there's a scene where Mia, our main character, lays out essentially the clues that are going to lead her to this conclusion to her husband, right? Because
Mhm.
okay, so at the 17-minute mark, um this guy who will end up being the one who kidnapped Riley in the first place, right? He shows up at Mia's door and says something along the lines of like, she finally let me go, and then he blows his brains out in front of her. That's the cue for switching from the documentary footage to the Mike Flanagan style, horror movie. um
Yes.
he has a tape in his hand that says Shelby Oaks. Now the police in the opening sequence, the slow-mo sequence where the police are doing the investigation, um the police are walking around his body lying on the porch with the tape held very blatantly in his hands. None of them notice it. so Mia can take it and hide it up her shirt sleeve and watch it on her own, to see that
Because she doesn't trust the cops
because she
for no
doesn't trust
reason.
the cops for the reason that like it's been 12 years and they haven't found her they haven't found her sister.
Yeah, but yeah, but
That's it.
I guess I just mean that like literally no one is any more competent. They're not incompetent relative to literally everyone else in the story,
Yeah.
including her.
Yeah.
So
So but she doesn't trust them, so she hides the tape up her sleeve so that she can watch the footage of the guy who brained himself on her porch, killing Riley's friends, and then I thought like I was like, "Oh, she was murdered." Because it looks like he
yes.
stabs her multiple times on the tape. Um, but knocking Riley out cold and killing all her friends. She watches this on the tape, and she goes, "Oh man, I don't believe this is over. I need to do some investigating on who this guy was and what led him to be there and everything like that." So she goes and finds out, and her husband, as someone pointed out, does only exist as an exposition dump foil. He's only there to hear the like he doesn't one of the first scenes with him at the beginning of the Mike Flanagan style movie, as she's sitting there with the suicide victim's brains splattered on her face. He comes in, looks at her over the couch, and gives her the most nonchalant little "You okay?" Like the same kind of thing you might do to your girlfriend if she's falling asleep while watching the movie that you put on. Like she and
she's got she's
she's
got
got
blood all
blood
over
all
her
over her
face still.
face. So like he's just like, "You okay? I'm going to bed." And he just gets up and leaves, right? So she's like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm fine. Okay, night." What? Okay, sure. Yeah, you're married. I buy that. Um, so she sits down with him later to lay out the clues that she's found that are going to lead her to the mystery's conclusion. And the clues she lays out are, okay, the guy, Winston Miles, was born in Shelby Oaks in 1981. Pretty much immediately after he's born, like at that year, the crops begin to fail, the soil turns bad, residents start leaving the town, it starts to die. The only thing that keeps the town afloat is the amusement park, the Shelby Oaks amusement park that Riley and Mia used to go to with their mom all the time, and the correctional facility. Now, like Riley, during this time, from when she was a child all the way to when she is 13 years old, she has these night terrors where she sees some weird man standing outside her second story window staring in at her as she's asleep. But when Winston Miles gets put in the correctional facility in Shelby Oaks, all of those stop. The night terrors stop. And then when he gets out 5 years later, that's when Riley disappears.
Yes.
So okay, the question then is, because like he obviously wasn't there when she was a baby, right? He didn't know her when she was a baby. So it's like, okay, what are the connections here? Right? Like what does the amusement park have to do with anything? What does the fact that you visited the amusement park have to do with anything? Could maybe he have been an employee at the amusement park and he saw her when she was a little girl, and the demon that possessed him that killed the town, right? The demon, like, clearly she's getting at the fact that maybe he's cursed, right? Or something's up with him. So maybe the demon that possessed him when he was born went after Riley after the amusement park, but we don't get a start date for the night terrors. It's just, oh, she always had them until he was put in prison. Okay, so the demon can't leave prison because it's not Winston Miles that's standing outside the window. It's a demon that's
Yeah.
standing outside the window. It can't leave the prison wall. Like that. That's enough to keep it in.
That's a good question.
How
The
does any of
demon,
this?
the demon that is causing crops to fail and causing the whole town to essentially become cursed, so that almost everyone abandons it. When you lock up the 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 human being it's possessing and or the child that it created, when you lock it up in prison, it's like, oh, all right, you caught me.
Oh
I'll
shit!
knock
I
it
guess
off.
I'll knock it off for 5 years. Yeah. that okay,
You would
so
expect that things to start improving in those 5 years, but I guess if everyone's gone by then, I don't know, whatever. We'll have to come back to what the demon is actually capable of and what it
well, yeah,
actually
and
wants
so
and
we
what's
like
happening.
the point that it, like so his final words before he blows his brains out are, "She finally let me go," and we end up finding out that that has to be his
His
mother,
mom.
right?
Yes.
She let me go. She let the demon out of me because when he was born, the demon was in him. Now, we don't ever see his father, and my thought was, oh, he's an incubus baby, because that's what an incubus does.
Yes.
He's a campion. Right, okay. So he is a demon. No, no, okay, no, he was just possessed by the demon, and because he was possessed by the demon, that's why his mom had him kidnap Riley, so that because the demon needs corporeal form to be able to reproduce, but that's not how
Isn't he
incubuses
the
work.
product?
Yeah,
But isn't setting aside whether this is an accurate portrayal or at least whether this has anything to do with what incubuses have been traditionally in folklore and all that sort of stuff. How is the guy who kidnapped Riley Brennan? How is he not the what the demon was aiming for?
yeah,
Like, why does he need another one? Is it just like a he needs to reproduce and continue? Then like what's
yeah.
his
Like
end game? Like, how is not? I don't think it quite works as like a
no,
like a heritage lineage thing.
because if anything, now like by the end we're dealing with a quarter demon. We're dealing with a quadroon.
Ugh.
I, I just I'm very confused, but
Yeah.
for some reason it all works out in Mia's favor. We know why it works out in Mia's favor. We know we end up figuring out exactly why it works out because there is no other explanation other than this was all fated to happen the whole time.
Oh, that's so spooky.
Hmm, isn't it? Isn't it just?
Isn't it just? Yeah, I don't understand how any of this is meant to work. So let's talk about the incubus question. You sort of hinted at it, but Hugh, what is an incubus in most
Isn't it like it's a
commonly
sex demon,
understood?
right? It's a demon that like comes to women when they're asleep and
A
knocks
male
them.
sex
Yeah,
demon,
male
yes.
sex. It's the male version of a succubus.
Yes.
It comes to women while they're asleep and it impregnates them with demon babies, right? Like that's its thing,
Basically,
right?
the incubus and succubus are like demonic images of like interfering in the natural course of human reproduction and child rearing. So
Yeah,
like the incubus demon has sex with the woman to create like a sort of child who doesn't really have a father sort of thing, and then the succubus demon is a bit more like a whore who like steals the seed and potential of men
yeah,
and so they don't actually reproduce. So they're both sort of like mirror reverse images of that sort of evil goal type thing. So like an incubus you might expect in a movie to be like a sort of demonic seductive sort of
or
figure.
yeah, like what people make Dracula into, right? Like
Yes,
that.
yes,
Or I mean, you might even expect it to be something like what happens in Rosemary's Baby, right?
yeah,
Like there
yeah.
has to be a ritual to bring it into the world, but it needs, it
Satan
yeah, yeah.
basically acts as a as an incubus in Rosemary's Baby,
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes.
So what it
That's what an
seems
incubus is supposed to be.
yeah, that's my understanding of an incubus. That's like I think the common mythology behind them, right? And the
Yes.
symbolism. In this, it's it's kind of like Haman in
From
Hereditary,
Hereditary, yes. But also a little bit Satan and Rosemary's Baby, but, like, okay,
but
so
yeah,
here's what's weird about it because, okay, so they basically eventually they're gonna try and get Riley pregnant with an evil demon baby, right? This is stop me if you've heard this before. And it doesn't work, and there's photos or video, I don't remember exactly, that sort of indicates that this is something they tried many, many times and it never worked and none of the babies lived or survived or something like that. So they have a bunch of little tiny graves of the like
Yeah.
almost human babies that weren't. Um, so it's not working for them, but like presumably the guy who kidnapped her is the one doing that, not the demon
There's a
question mark.
there's a photo of him pushing her up against a tree and fucking her. Like there's a photo of him
Yeah.
like biting his upper lip and making an O face, which
All
is
right, yeah.
yeah.
So like so is the demon possessing that guy? Is that guy half demon? Is that the incubus in human form?
Well, yeah, because like I would have assumed that he would be the Campion, the offspring of the incubus, because his mother would have allowed the incubus
In.
in,
Yeah.
and that he would be working to like acquire a new host for that, like a new victim for this sacrifice, like
Sure.
because sinful lust,
So
sure.
here's the question I have fundamentally. So if the guy who kidnapped her is a demon, is the incubus in human form, because otherwise what's the point? If he is, then like what is he doing besides continuing the incubus line? Like what is he doing evil in the world? Like what is the point of this?
Yeah.
Exactly. And then also when he's like, she finally let me go. So I'm like, okay, I guess that isn't the incubus in human form. I guess it's not even really possessed by him. It's like he is like a weird troubled guy with mommy issues or whatever who thinks his mom is forcing him to do this. So that means he isn't the product of the incubus, right? Because
Right. Yeah.
because he
Like,
seems to be independent of its influence.
yeah. Like he
Really.
kills himself because he's like, oh, finally, but I've done so much. Like, it's already made me do so much wrong that I can't live with myself anymore. That's why he kills himself, right? Like, that's got to be it. But yeah, it's all very confused and confusing, and it doesn't
Yes.
really follow, and none of it is really gonna help her at all, right? Because like she's gonna go in the like so she lays this all out in front of her husband, and he quite rightly just goes, "You need help." And he gets up and leaves. Like well, quite rightly says you need help, but then he gets up and leaves, and I'm like, oh yeah, you're married. I believe that. Yeah, 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 sure. Yeah, there's definitely no love lost between you two. Clearly. Uh, so like you just watched a man blow his brains out. I'm surprised you washed your face, honestly. Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, he gets up
Before
and
you
leaves.
continue, we have a super chat. Joey Bag of Donuts says, "Always love to see you on EFAP Cap. Glad to catch a live stream. Thanks for helping me get through my work shift, gents. You're quite
You're
welcome.
very
Glad to hear it.
welcome. We
Glad to hear
Joey
you're
Bag of
enjoying the
Donuts.
content. We're glad
That's a
you're here.
great mobster handle, dude. I love it. It's beautiful. You would have fit in well in The Sopranos. It would have been
All
great.
right, continue. You were
Yeah,
saying
so Mia, like this is going to prompt Mia to begin her investigations, and her investigations are just going to lead her to the prison, right? She goes like she's on this like pulling this thread that doesn't really seem to follow this way, but she's like, okay, well, going to the prison has to be the next step because Riley freaked out when she was investigating the prison on her YouTube channel. Keith David freaked out when he saw a guy just standing in his cell during a riot. So clearly something's going on in the prison. That's the next place
the
to
guy
go.
who killed himself on her porch just escaped from
Just
prison.
escaped. Well, just was let out from that
It was
prison.
let
Yeah,
out previously,
yeah,
not
on
just
parole.
yeah.
Yeah, he was let out and from prison then. So she goes to the prison to investigate. She finds the cell where he had been kept, and the demon is there, independent of the body of the guy who killed himself. But the demon can sort of take corporeal form when it needs to, and it has to have done that, right? Because it was standing outside their window when they were children, watching them sleep like Edward from Twilight. And but okay, but so like it can take that physical form when it wants to or needs to, but it can't do that when the physical guy that it's attached to is in prison. But now that he's dead, it can still appear, and it is definitely there because there are hellhounds that follow it around. Hellhounds are its guardians, and there's a hellhound in the prison that lunges at Mia as she's sitting there, quivering in horror from the demon that's like just very, very slowly stalking towards her through the dark. And the hellhound comes up from her side and lunges at her and almost bites her face off. She gets up and starts running away, and as the hellhound starts to take chase, the demon grabs it by the neck and is like, "No, no, let her go," right? Um, so yeah,
I'm back. That was so stupid.
yeah,
That
that
scene.
was real. That's dumb, but yeah. So like, okay, so what I was getting at too is right, like the demon couldn't take physical form enough to stare through their window when the guy it was attached to was in jail. But when the guy it was attached to has killed himself and is dead, it can take physical form and appear to Mia in the prison cell where he was kept.
It's just nonsense. It's just
Yeah,
nonsense. What you need for something like this is a people working on the behest of a demon who wants to have a physical form so it can act in the world. Because demons are spiritual things. They don't actually have form. They don't actually have bodies unless they possess things in most storytelling. Um, so that's what you need. You need him to not be corporeal and be struggling to become corporeal. Because otherwise, if he's just corporeal the whole time, then what does he need with these babies? Why isn't he just going and doing this himself? Why does he need the weird backwoods hick family to do their bidding? Like why does he need any of this? What is he
yeah.
after?
I'm not.
What is he trying to have corporeal demon form to do?
We don't. Yeah, well, we get that answer at the end when the mother is doing her ritual to summon the incubus of the north. Because I guess there's one per cardinal direction, like the winds. Um, I thought that they were just sort of like horny little sex pests, like the French. But I guess there's a hierarchy to them, and that would make sense, right? Medieval hierarchies are pretty neat and common in demonology. Um, but she
Sure.
summons the incubus of the north, and she asks it to protect the child. Um, well, after Riley attempts to run at it with, a knife or, some other such weapon to try to perform a very late term abortion. Um, the mother stops her with some Vecna powers and flings her across the room. Although she could just kill her because there is no reason for Riley to be alive any longer. The baby has come to term and is there, right? And
Yeah.
like there's no reason not to kill her, especially given how the movie's going to end. But um she basically just imbues the Campion baby with the protection of the incubus and is just like, use him to do your will on this earth. Amen. And that's it, really, that's it. And then she goes and like dies because she's had to like slice her wrist open pretty deep to do this ritual, so she just crawls over to the wall and dies. And that's it. That's it. Well, sorry, that's not it. Mia, the sister of the woman who clearly like just watched as a demon was imbued into a baby, chooses life. Let's say she sticks to her principles. She chooses life despite the fact that she like has no reason not to believe that this baby will bring about hell on earth. And is in fact a demon. So she brings the baby home with her sister, and that's going to facilitate the ending of the movie. And you might be
Before we get to
wondering
the ending, because the
why.
ending's really funny, really, really funny. But I was just thinking about it when you mentioned that she has Vecna powers. I was like, oh, You know where Chris Stuckman would have really fit in is directing an episode or two of
Stranger
Stranger
Things,
Things.
yeah, he
Season
probably would have
5.
excelled at what season 3. He would have excelled at the meat flare. Come on, yeah, yeah. So like, it's all nonsense, right? None of it really. So like, and really to get the full sequence of events, right? The incubus appears to Mia at the jail. It allows her to escape. She backs out of the like gets all the way to her car, backs out the driveway and starts like flooring it. But for some reason she is compelled to get out of the car and explore the woods around Shelby Oaks prison, right? And she finds the same little mark of the incubus carved into a tree. And then she turns around and finds a bunch of them in the garden. And then she sees the old woman at the mobile home door invite her in, and she walks in, and there's her sister in the basement.
Yeah.
So it's
It
like
just it
it
just
just
works.
happens. It
It just
like
works.
it's a very and then story.
Oh yeah.
And that's and then like I've described how it ends. Like she sees the demon ritual imbue the baby with dark evil spellbinding magic, and takes it home. She's like, this is cute. This is my oh yeah, it's my niece. Gotta bring her home. Um, the documentary finishes filming. They're like, "Wow, aren't you happy that Riley's back?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's gonna be a challenge, but we're really glad to have her home, and I knew I could never give up." The documentary crew goes away, and then Riley goes to try to smother the baby in the crib because it's literally demon spawn. Um, and Mia immediately stops her. She's like, "Riley, what are you doing? No, 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 no!" Grabs the pillow away from her. They struggle over the pillow. Mia flings Riley out the window in the struggle by accident. She falls into the garden, breaking at least an arm. She can't get up. The hellhounds come by and they tear Riley to shreds,
And they tear to
tear her to
bits.
pieces.
And
As
Mia goes,
Mia goes, "Oh
"Ah,
my
no!
god!"
Oh my
And
god!"
then it is revealed through flashback that Mia has been possessed, guided by the demon this whole time. And she
It really wanted
screams.
me the whole
It really
time.
wanted me the whole time. And she screams and the movie's over.
Just terrible. Awful. As an actual mystery, as an actual story, as a series of events, it's just awful. Though we did get a comment from good old Travian Washington who says, "You guys are intentionally missing out on the subtext and themes of this
We
movie."
are
So
engaging in
let's
some
talk about that
incredibly anti-intellectual
behavior. Yeah.
behavior. That is true. Um,
So what are so now
what
that we know that
now
that's
that
what
we
the
know the
story was,
story,
what
well,
was it about? You know,
well, it
how
was
did it make?
about
First
his
of all,
sister leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses, obviously. 10-year passion project.
let's see how that actually maps onto the movie because okay, if there's a weird cult force that is controlling and manipulating people. It's like, okay, there's something there. But when the okay, so if this is if his sister is Riley Brennan, and if I'm reading into this based on how he's described what the inspiration was, then this is a story about a woman that he likes and cares about being manipulated and abused by a cult who only really see her as you know something to be
To
like bred and
perpetrate, yeah,
conceive
to be bred
children.
and
Yeah.
to be bred and to perpetrate the purposes of the cult, right?
Yes. That seems to be the subtext, right?
This
Then
is being
why does
incredibly generous, by the way.
yes,
Like,
this is. So if that's the case,
I'm really not confident that this is the actual theme of it and that he didn't just watch Immaculate and
well,
or
it's like the themes, the inspirations that are coming from his own experience are like at the before you even start the script. You know what I mean? It's like there's an idea there. And that's what's coming from him. And then the actual execution is just a hodgepodge of things that he saw in better movies. But If that's the case, if that's sort of what's happening here thematically, then why does the movie end with, the cult was really after me the whole time?
Hmm.
Like, what
It
is
does. It does bear questioning, doesn't it?
what does that
Why,
mean?
Chris? What exactly are you getting at there, Chris? Is Mia you? Are you like is Mia his gender swapped persona?
Self-insert persona?
I think we should start calling self-insert characters personas just to make
I think
sure that we
so.
like really shame the people who do it. Is Mia his self-insert character? And
I
is
don't.
that like is that a narcissistic take? Like
Oh,
that really like actually they only wanted my sister because they wanted me? Is that what he's getting at? I don't
I
know if
mean,
there's enough
probably not
there.
on
I
purpose,
don't think it's on purpose, and I don't think there's enough there to make that definitive. But it is like that's
but there is
kind
an
of
air
what
of
it
it.
says. Yeah, that
There's
is.
an air of narcissism in the ending specifically. I know but like you can tell it was just meant as like, oh, we need a little twist at the end. Oh, and like the kind of twist that makes you go, oh, it was all fated this way, and isn't that spooky?
Wait
Because
a minute,
that's just
Travion, you're actually a genius. Her name is Mia. Of course,
Mia. It's a
me.
Mia,
It's a
Krista
Mia,
Stuckman.
Krista Stuckman. uh, yeah, I mean, it is a bizarre, confusing mess. I don't.
Yes.
Yeah,
Basically, nothing about it works, to put it
nothing,
bluntly.
nothing whatsoever. I mean, there's even there's a scene that's gonna flip through in the trailer. Like you'll see it again in a little bit, where she drives past the sign that she drives past that makes her get like as she's fleeing the hellhound and the demon in the prison is a sign for like welcome to Shelby Oaks, but somebody has scrawled who took Riley Brennan in like on the sign, right? Which
Yeah.
is really like she knows. So it's not really like she knows and she has the ability to like get people to care about it. But she's not taking that opportunity. She's trying to figure I don't know, man. It doesn't work. It doesn't work as like the reason why she would stop the car and get out. You know, like I
No.
just don't buy it.
So it's the plot needs her to do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
nothing about the prison sequence actually tells her anything.
no.
And like, why is the demon there? Why did the hellhounds show up to like snap at her and miss, and only to be pulled off by the demon? Like, no, we have bigger plans for her. Like, why? What was the point of any of that? You just needed a
Yeah.
spooky sequence. So, trying to read too much into the themes here is a fool's errand because it's confused because it's just a hodgepodge of different things that all had their own different themes. So, those things have not been united coherently by a set of unique themes for this movie. There's general things you could look at, but it would be kind of a fool's errand to say anything definitively about what this movie is even about because I don't think it knows. Don't think it knows. It's not a very worthwhile movie in any respect. It's not very entertaining. What few interesting ideas that are there are not committed to in the slightest. There are no exciting performances other than the creepy old lady. But the creepy old lady is not like amazing or anything. Like it's not like she saves the movie at the end. It's just like, oh, finally, a mildly interesting performance shows up. Um, it's it's got a dumb name. There's nothing really to like about it fundamentally. So swing and a miss for our first YouTuber we're going to talk about today. Swing and a big old miss. I do not recommend Shelby Oaks, except if you really want to see what Chris Stuckman's capable of. God, it's kind of an ugly movie too. Like, okay, so I did praise this movie for having a basic level of technical competence, and this will be relevant as we transition into Iron Lung. But the visual style of the movie is really ugly. It's generically ugly. It looks professional in that it looks like a lot of other
A
modern
lot
horror
of
movies.
other ugly modern horror movies. Yeah, that's
Exactly. But those movies are also ugly, so it's hard to really give it much praise. Like, for example, at the end, they go to the creepy old woman's house. It's just covered in black mold because they're like, ooh, that would be spooky. But then she's outside of the house, and there's the black mold is so bad, it's literally growing on the outside of the house.
yeah,
Now, I don't know about you guys, but I would simply not go in that house. I don't I don't care. There's no need for her to go in that house. She can call the cops at this point.
yeah,
For sure she
for
can.
sure.
But it looks ugly and sickly and gross because that's what all horror movies look like these days.
Oh, wait a minute, I forgot about this. Okay, so first of all, when especially given the old woman's performance, right? Like, because she's kind of giving it a fun, almost David Lynchy spin in some of the way that she's moving, like the
Sure.
dancing and everything, right? What if instead of a typical black mold infested trailer in, out in the woods, she had walked in and it was very brightly lit and warm and cozy and
See,
actually like
now you're thinking like an actual artist, and you got to stop doing that because what we're trying to do is make this feel like a real horror movie. And so we're going to do all the stupid, uninteresting things that real horror movies do, and none of the interesting things that would make the movie stand out. You know, it's so
yeah.
amazing to me because I this is a big, 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 big pet peeve of mine. A lot of the best horror movies of all time look nothing like this. They're well lit, they're colorful, they have a deeper depth of field. Movies like The Shining, movies like The Thing,
Movies like
movies
The
like
Omen.
The Omen. Yeah, The Omen is so like anti-modern horror movie trends that like the opening music, like when we're seeing the happy family, like the music is really happy. Any modern horror movie would be like, no, the music needs to be scary the whole time, or else people will forget it's a horror movie. It needs to be dark, or else people will forget it's a horror movie. It needs to be gross, etc., etc. It would be so much more interesting. You're absolutely right. If this house was actually really well upkept and maintained,
Yeah, if
that
it
would
was
be
like a
so
cozy
much
little
more
cottage
interesting.
out in the woods, like I mean,
Like
there's
she's thriving among the dead town. You
yeah,
know what I mean? And there's something spooky and unnerving about that. Yes.
yeah, and the other thing, right? She walks in, and she hears something moving upstairs, like something like walking, or shifting in bed and like creaking the floor from upstairs.
Yes.
And she looks up and she like looks at the woman and goes, "You live by yourself out here, Norma?" And the old woman kind of looks her dead in the eyes and goes, "Yep." And then just starts like
Well,
dancing
doesn't she
away.
say nope?
Oh no, she says nope.
She says nope.
Nope.
Yes.
And she like, which is like hilarious, right? Because she like, but we never find out what's moving upstairs that caused the creaking. It's
It's
not.
got to be the demon.
I I guess so. I
Well, I mean,
guess
like
because the demon
literally
doesn't
at
appear. The demon doesn't appear in the house. It
well,
shows up in the
it
basement
appears and
later.
disappears whenever it wants to. I think
I thought
the
she thought it
because
was her
it's not
sister,
her son. It's not her son because he suicided himself. It's not Riley because she's down in the basement.
and it's
The
not the
only
baby
thing
because the baby's too small to do
to
that.
make that kind of noise. So it's got to be the demon, or it could be literally anything. It could be a hippopotamus. There's, like it might as well have been a hippopotamus because none of this makes any sense. Um, but yes, no, you're right that it would be much more interesting and subversive of typical horror tropes if the house was actually immaculately maintained. Not like groundbreaking, not like we've never seen anything like that before,
Oh,
but it would be like, oh,
oh,
that's an interesting
the
choice.
hag that lives in the woods lures you in with kindness and warmth and like the
Yeah,
promise of good things. Huh.
yeah.
I never really considered that before, but that could work, couldn't it?
Yeah, well, it's like the whole approach to the incubus in this. The incubus is like obviously supposed to be a seductive figure, just like the succubus is a seductive figure. So it needs to be seductive. If it's just an obviously ugly demon that's only trying to do what it wants to the women or men respectively, just by brute force and scaring them, like that's not interesting at all.
Yeah.
It's like what like the thing that makes incubus and succubus figures, whether like actual literal demons in stories or characters that play those roles in stories, interesting is that something has to be appealing about them, because that something has to seduce you about them. But this is nothing about that. It's like, no, there's a creepy generic demon who looks kind of like a weird goat man thing with glowy eyes. It's like, oh, never seen that before.
Yeah,
And it looks passable, but it's like that's all the movie is aspiring to, is being passable.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
It just wants to pass. It just wants to pass the sniff test of being a real movie. That's all it wants to do.
Yeah, he's fighting for a C. He's fighting for his life for a C on this
Yeah.
project.
And it's amazing. I mentioned this yesterday, but like he put out a video back in the day talking about his favorite movies, the movies that inspired him to want to make movies, to want to talk about movies, and they included, perhaps unsurprisingly for a man of his age and his interests, like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. He's also a huge fan of Signs by M. Night Shyamalan for whatever reason. I know. At least, but that
Well,
movie
at
has more
least he
going
did
for it.
like there's very clear homages to Signs in this movie. We have the exact scene of Joaquin Phoenix watching a clip
Yes.
unfold.
Yes, but other than a person watches something on the television, um, I don't see any of those
What are you
inspirations
talking
and
about?
references.
She finds signs carved into the trees.
Like in terms of the filmmaking, right? Because like I said, he's only really aiming to do passable, believable horror movie, and it's like if one of your favorite movies of all time is Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, I would fucking hope that your movie has a bit more style and flair than this.
Yeah,
All right? Like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man is full of incredibly fun filmmaking
fun,
choices.
campy filmmaking.
Yes. Dutch angles
Yeah,
and
that's where
napkins
Sam
and
Raimi
split diopters and
thrives, right? Like
yes.
that's his bread and butter. What's the
So how
Kate?
can
Oh
you
God, didn't Sam Raimi make? I'm pretty sure he made the Kate Blanchett horror movie
a
about a
gift?
me. Yeah, that was him, right?
Yeah, that was him, yeah.
Yeah, Sam Raimi made a fantastic. That's maybe one of my that might be my favorite Sam Raimi movie is The Gift, and like
Oh, interesting. I haven't seen it.
I love that movie. I think that works. All of his filmmaking techniques are at their best in that for me, right? Like that, like in
Interesting.
that kind, serving that kind of story. I think it works great, right? And I love the way he does Spider-Man. You could bring a little bit of that to this movie, but you didn't. You just went with like Mike Flanagan light. You
Yeah,
tried
you
to
didn't bring
copy Mike
any of that.
Flanagan, and that's yeah, it's kind of a pathetic showing from somebody who claims that like this is what they want to be doing, you know? Like
I think what I've learned more and more is that there's a lot of people, but especially like film reviewers and critics and things like that, who like they'll be like, "Oh, like whatever, Jurassic Park is one of my favorite movies." And then when they go to make something, there's just literally none of what makes Jurassic Park good in it.
yeah,
And it's like, "Oh, you like Jurassic Park. It's not
you just don't
necessarily
know
for the
why.
yeah, you don't know why. That's it. It's not for the wrong reasons. It's just that you don't know what makes it good. You just can't. You don't have that part of you that can identify what it is that works and what makes it unique and different and interesting and how it's all fit together.
Speaking of Sam Raimi, have I seen Send Help? Not yet, but I'm gonna. I absolutely am gonna. I live now that I live in a place where movie theaters are actually accessible and I don't have to drive an hour and a half to get to the nearest one. I am gonna be
He's gonna
seeing a
see more
lot more
movies.
movies, and I
Yeah, I'm
like
gonna be honest. Send Help doesn't look good to me. It doesn't.
not to me either, but
I'm.
I'm
Oh,
gonna
it's
see
like,
it.
oh, she's got a really annoying dickhead of a boss, but she's gonna show him what's what. Like, oh, I don't give a fuck about that. I'm so
Yeah,
sick of that, actually. But you know what would actually be subversive if Send Help had the roles reversed. That would actually be
yeah.
subversive if he had a literal girl boss, and then they get stranded on an island, but he actually has to do all the shit to help them survive. Like that would actually be subversive in the current climate. I don't know. Just nothing
Yeah.
about Send Help was particularly
I
interesting
think
looking to me.
I think Sam Raimi's been washed for a while, but I'm gonna go see it anyway because it's out and I have the Alamo season pass and I can see as many movies as I want. So I'm gonna.
Look at you.
Uh,
Emperor Goodwin says, "I like meth." Doesn't mean you know how to cook meth.
True.
Perfect.
Exactly. That's the perfect
Perfect.
analogy. Yeah.
Perfect analogy. Well, speaking of
Sp-
send help, this might actually be a
Perfect
nice
segue.
place to transition because Send Help is out right now. So is a movie called Iron Lung. And Iron Lung is a movie made by the YouTuber
A film by
Markiplier.
Markiplier, as it
Yes.
says on the credits. I love
And
that he kept the name.
yeah, I love it too. Unironically, I really love that.
Yeah,
I think it's just like, well, that's the name, that's the brand. Like, we watched a video yesterday on EFAP, and one of the things he said was like, "Yeah, well, I'm proud of that name, so I put that name on things. Like, I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed of
I
being a
love it.
YouTuber."
I love
And
it.
I'm just like, fucking patriot. Tell him, get him.
Yeah.
That's thank you, thank
Like
you. Like,
this is the thing about Markiplier, right? Is like I'm not a big fan of his videos. That doesn't like I love the energy that he has, right?
yeah.
He just seems like a great guy, you know?
Yeah, I got that vibe. I literally knew nothing about him before watching Iron Lung, except that he was a big YouTuber. I'd never really seen anything at all. And then after everything we watched and talked about yesterday, and after watching the movie, I'm like, you know what? I like this guy a lot, actually. He's really funny. I
Yeah.
don't know that I'd watch him play horror games necessarily,
Yeah,
but
to be fair, watching him play Iron Lung is the most interesting part of Iron Lung.
yeah,
The
he
game
seems really
sucks.
entertaining. But I like that he's not ashamed of being a YouTuber. I like that he uses Markiplier as the brand. But anyway, so that movie came out recently as well, and it actually did so well at the box office that it actually was #1 in America for like a couple. I think one day. I think it was Friday, the weekend it came out. It did better than Send Help, which
Yeah.
is pretty impressive
And
for a
it's
bunch of
still
reasons.
doing quite well. I think it's already
Oh,
made
it's
like globally, it's made 7 times its budget.
$30 million it's
Holy
made.
shit, it's made 10. Oh my god, good for
Yep.
him.
Yes. There's going to be a lot of good for him upcoming, so get used to us saying that. So the story behind Iron Lung is that the YouTuber Markiplier played a little indie horror game called Iron
Iron
Lung,
Lung.
and he liked it a lot, and he decided he was going to adapt it into a feature film. And unlike most people, not just unlike Chris Stuckman, he decided he would fund the film entirely himself. Now obviously he's a very successful YouTuber. What does he have? How many millions of subscribers does he have? Look that up for me. um
All right.
so he decided to fund the movie himself, reportedly a budget of usually people say less than 3 million, so somewhere between 2 and 3 million. He put up the money himself. He produced it himself along with a couple other producers. He wrote it himself, obviously adapted from the video game. He also directed it himself, and he also starred in it himself. But perhaps
I mean, it's
most
the ultimate passion
interestingly,
project, the ultimate.
yeah. Oh yeah, and it's all he's putting it all on the line for it. And perhaps the most interesting part in a meta sense is that he distributed the movie himself. He did not
Yes.
sell the distribution rights. He did not get a distribution deal with a Neon, an A24, a Warner Brothers, any of these other distribution companies and studios. He distributed it himself by approaching theaters and getting at first what he assumed would be a very limited theatrical showing, because it's actually quite hard to get an independent film, that isn't backed by a reputable studio into the theaters, because theaters don't want to risk the space and time
Yeah.
on movies that are just going to completely flop, right? So, he eventually convinced some theaters, and then his fans requested that the movie be shown in their theaters, and that built enough momentum as more theaters started to get on board. Eventually, now it's up to something like 1,500 theaters and more coming internationally. So,
He has
huge
about
success.
38.3 million subscribers, and they
Nice.
have all turned up for this. Like the theater that I went to was packed. It was the first time I've been in a wall to wall packed theater in quite a while.
Yeah. It was not packed for me. I saw it at a weird time during the day. That might have been part of it, but yeah.
Yeah, we
It
saw
was
it
it
at
was
like prime time, 7:30 showing. It was packed.
yeah. Yeah.
Every like and I mean the other thing too is like everybody I've never seen anything quite like this, right? Like I was like there's no after the credit scene, right? Like everybody just sat there the whole time watching the credits.
Yeah.
I was like,
Partly, I
damn.
assume because they wonder if there will be an after the credit scene, but also because, they're excited to buy it and they want
Yeah,
to see the credits and everything like that. Yeah. It's
yeah.
interesting.
I mean, yeah,
So
really, really big.
he bet the farm and it worked for him. Unbelievable success. So let's call it a $3 million budget, $30 million return, because he does not have a distribution company taking a cut, and because he spent. This is the other interesting factoid: is that he spent basically no money on marketing other than the cost of editing a trailer himself or with whoever he edited the trailers with. That's it. He didn't spend any money on marketing otherwise. So because of that, the theater takes about 50%. That's $15 million directly to Markiplier.
Yeah.
Whereas it's probably worth comparing it because I've been doing a lot of research into distribution deals recently for reasons that I'll talk about in a bit. But looking at how grim the math on a lot of distribution deals can be for the filmmakers themselves, I sort of started to realize why Chris Stuckman immediately folded
And
and
started
caved and started
selling gambling apps on YouTube.
scummy, just the scummiest, most predatory ads possible. And basically, it's because I think there's a very good chance that Chris Stuckman has made $0 from
I
Shelby
bet you
Oaks
he's
so
still
far.
in debt from Shelby Oaks.
Well, I don't know about debt because the film Shelby Oaks was entirely crowdfunded, and I'm sure he would have been paid a director's fee for like literally because it's illegal not to for his work on set and in post production. He would have made whatever his weekly or daily rate is during that. But I think there's strong reason to believe he has very little ownership share of the movie itself because the movie was made by two production companies. One of them is Mike Flanagan's. It's called Intrepid Pictures. The other one, I don't remember the name of it right now, but it's not Chris Stuckman's production company. It's another indie filmmaker that Chris Stuckman clearly has some sort of relationship with, who helped him develop it. So the other thing is the distribution company, in this case Neon. We don't know the exact figures. This sort of thing is never revealed publicly, but it's pretty much standard to assume that like a studio, a distribution company will take about 30% of the gross revenue, right? So Shelby Oaks makes $6 million at theaters, quite a bit less than Iron Lung, by the way, which is interesting. It makes $6 million. Let's say the theater takes 50%. That's $3 million that goes to Neon. Neon would take 30% of that. And so you would think maybe that the other 70% goes to whoever owns the equity in the film. But no, because Neon has recoupable expenses that comes out of that share, the rest of the 70%. So marketing costs, deliverable costs, legal costs, sometimes distribution companies can be kind of scummy and try to bill you for things that didn't actually really help your movie at all. For example, this is the kind of horror story that happens to a lot of indie movies in general. Is you get a distribution company and they're going to go to a film festival where your film is premiering, and they're going to have meetings with Netflix and some of these other platforms, and the distribution company is going to talk about putting your film on those platforms, for example, right? They might have a meeting with Netflix, and you're going to get charged out of your earnings, out of that rest of that 70%, the cost of going there and attending that dinner with Netflix, right? Regardless if they mentioned your movie during the meeting or not, right? Because maybe they have 15 movies they're trying to sell to Netflix. They might not even mention yours, but they might
It might
charge
just be a
you.
package, right? They're like, hey, we've got
Yes.
this group of horror movies, and this is what we're gonna, we want this much for it. How much can you do, right? Like, what can we do to get our stuff on your streaming platform for the next 6 months? And
Yes.
they may not even mention like, hey, we got this really great one, by this young upcoming filmmaker. They're just saying like, yeah, we got a package of 15.
Or
We'll
or or they might only talk about the ones they think Netflix really wants and not even mention yours at all. And then you
yeah,
find out, oh, well, Netflix didn't want the movie, but it's like, do you have any way of proving they even brought it up? Like, well,
yeah.
maybe they try to bill you for that essentially out of your earnings as part of their recoupable expenses anyway. Distribution companies they aren't always, but they can be really scummy. I don't know if the more reputable, famous ones that you would know the name of are that scummy and predatory. Maybe they can be when they think they can get away with it. It's unclear because it would cost a lot to audit a distribution company, right? And so, like, maybe Neon wasn't predatory at all, but either way, all the marketing they did for Shelby Oaks is going to come out of that, the rest of that 70% that would go to the two production companies that made it. That, remember, Chris Stuckmann owns neither of. So what percentage of what's left does he even own? Unclear. How much money even trickles down to him at all? Maybe zero. And I am so sure that he thought he was going to make a lot more than he actually did. Because it would be hard not to if you don't know how grim the math is on a lot of these deals. You might not know that you might not get anything actually, which kind of sucks. But what's interesting about these kind of deals is that you might take that deal anyway because, Shelby Oaks was a movie distributed by a reputable distributor. It was in theaters. It will be on all the major streaming platforms, right? That's a big deal for your career if you made a good movie. And if you made a good movie, that will lead to further movies. It will make it easier to get your next film financed, all that sort of fun stuff, even if you don't actually earn a penny from it, other than what you made when you were actually working on it. So it's kind of a rough deal that a lot of indie filmmakers make because distribution deals are designed for bigger films, fundamentally. They're designed for massive films with massive profits, not small films with moderate profits. So I would not be surprised. I don't think he would owe money on any of it necessarily. Like, I don't think he's in debt over Shelby Oaks, especially because he didn't fund the movie himself. But I bet you he's made essentially nothing.
Yeah,
And so that, I think, helps paint a picture of why he's like, fuck it. We're going to go with the scummiest ads possible. I don't care however much money they want to offer me. Yeah, I'll offer like I'll shill a gambling slot machine app themed based on like Wicked in my Wicked review. I'll do like a Loan Shark app in my review of a SpongeBob video, like a SpongeBob movie. It's just because he has no scruples and he doesn't care. It's not an excuse for it, obviously, but I'm just like I think that's what happened there.
yeah. I wouldn't be honestly. I wouldn't be surprised if he owes a little bit somewhere on to some company in some manner because like it did make it. I know he didn't market it very well, right? He clearly didn't spend the money on pushing ads to mainstream
Yeah,
audiences or
Neon didn't
anything.
do a huge marketing push. They did a
Yeah.
small one that I saw because I follow Neon on platforms and stuff like that. I follow some of these streaming platforms, or sorry, some of these distribution companies. But yeah, no, they didn't do a lot of marketing. But God knows how much they spent on it with the trailers and everything.
Yeah.
I don't think he owes money. I think that's just very unlikely because he didn't finance the movie himself.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you finance an indie movie, sometimes it's just like, oh, all the people that contribute money own a percentage share of the equity in the film based on how much they contributed. Sometimes when you're funding an independent movie, because independent movies are so unlikely to make money, you might actually do something like a loan with the people who are investing in the movie, where you're offering to pay 115% of what they gave you, no matter what. So you're literally going into debt. That's a thing that a lot of people do. Um, but because this was crowdfunded, I really doubt.
Yeah, maybe you're right about that. Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, but either way, much much less successful than Markiplier has been. Just based
Yes.
on the sheer goodwill of his audience, right? That Stuckmann hasn't had for like maybe ever.
That's the big thing.
Yeah,
That's the big thing. You would think, because Markiplier obviously has far more subscribers, but Chris Stuckman has millions, and if they still loved him, that
yeah,
would go a long way.
yeah. It definitely would. The great thing is for Markiplier and about this movie, right? Is this not only showcases like a decent amount of talent for this kind of budget, right? Like it gets his name is now much bigger, especially since it's performed so well, right? It shows that he's got that built-in audience, and it does what Chris Stuckman was hoping Shelby Oaks would do if Markiplier decides he wants to go into this, go into making horror movies, for example, or just making movies
Yeah.
in general. It basically puts his name out there so that now I'm sure there are, companies calling him on the phone, being like, "Hey,
Yeah.
hey, Harvey Weinstein here. What else you got?"
Calling from prison.
Yeah, Harvey Weinstein here, calling from prison. What else you got? You got anything else you
it
want? You want some funding for? What? Yep. But point being, like, this puts him in a great position for moving forward here, and he doesn't like he can just be like, I don't. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna. And like,
It
I mean,
seems like that's what he's going to do based on how he's talked about it.
yeah,
Is that he's just like, I want to make more movies and I have other projects that I dream of making. And one of the things he mentioned was that he had talked to a film student, a filmmaker who was a fan and who liked the movie. And he was talking to that fan about how, I'm getting a lot of calls now after doing the self distribution thing, where studios like want to pick up the movie now. And the filmmaker he was talking to was like, "Oh, it'd be great if you didn't. It would be great if you just stayed independent. That would be much
yeah,
better for the overall health of the industry, and it would kind of show like, it would just be good for indie filmmaking in general." And he seemed to take that to heart. And so it seems like he's pretty intent on just
good for
being
him.
independently permanently. You know,
Yeah, good for him, man. Like
I know, I know.
that is great. This is the kind of push the industry really needs. Now, there's a narrative around this movie that I like even some normies who have no idea who he is and had no idea really that the movie was coming out, right? They had vaguely heard about it, right? And especially now that it performed as well as it did, they're pushing the narrative a lot. But the narrative is that the studios hate what he's done because it's kind of shown that their formula, their strategies are outdated, and that this is how, like, this is the future, right? I'm not sure that that's entirely
It's
true.
not that simple. It's
Yeah,
more complicated than that, and maybe that's a little bit dramatic, right? Because I don't know that Hollywood hates that the movie was successful and wants to see it fail. I think now that it was, I bet they didn't want to participate when they didn't think it would be a success. Now that it has been a success, they're like, oh, we want in on that.
yeah,
It's not exactly that they wanted to fail. They do want to, like it would be good for a Netflix or something like that to buy the streaming rights and then put it on Netflix. That would be good for them. But Markiplier seems intent on not doing that. I'm actually kind of curious what he'll do. I think he'll probably go the route of going through an aggregator and trying to get it on all the like rental VOD platforms. That's
probably.
what I
Yeah,
would.
that's
That's
what
what I
I would
would
do.
bet he does. Yeah, but yeah, the thing that's more complicated because like this is an obvious indie success story, right? But it doesn't quite show some of the things that people are saying it shows. One of them is the like this isn't necessarily the future because Markiplier didn't spend literally any money on advertising and it was still a success. Now, granted, you could say he spent all that money building up the audience over
Yeah,
years. So like he invested in the audience and that is what will pay off later as the marketing for the movie, but most indie films do not have that already, and that's not to denigrate it because obviously he spent a lot of time and energy and talent building that audience, and so he earned it, and he did do that independently on YouTube, which is really cool. Not everyone will have the 30 million subscribers, and so the model will have to change a lot because the hardest thing to do right now, the reason why if you made a film for $3 million, you cobbled together the funding somehow, um, you would struggle to get it in front of people without spending a ton of money on marketing,
yeah,
right? Because the distribution companies, they have the money for that, right? They're going to take it out of your profits, but they have the money on hand to spend $1 million on marketing. You don't, probably, unless you raised $5 million to spend 3 million on the movie and
and
2 million on the
2 million on the
marketing or
marketing.
something
Yeah,
like that. Like it might be possible in the future that people that already have cultivated massive audiences like Markiplier can produce more movies and get them in front of people who don't already have that. So like this is good for the film industry overall. I just think this isn't like necessarily the model going forward,
no, no,
if
no.
that
I
makes
think
sense.
one of the so someone made a joke of that Hollywood is going to learn the lesson that people want submarine movies from this, right? And I'm sure that there are some who are gonna be like that. I think the savvier executives in Hollywood, the producers, are going to look at this and really in a way see confirmation of something that they've been trying for a while, where I've overheard Maya Hawke, or yeah, I've heard Maya Hawke talking about how producers want people, young filmmakers, to cast Instagram, like people with a certain number of Instagram followers in their movies, because they want
because it's
to tap
built-in
into that
marketing.
built-in
Yep.
marketing and audience, right? They want, it's like they don't really care if, actors have been, have any talent. They just want them to be recognizable faces for a bunch of loyal people who will turn out to the movies. And I think that's a lesson you could easily take away from this movie, because Markiplier is a great, like, seems like a great guy. He's not great. His performance isn't great, but
Yeah, it's
like,
okay, it's serviceable, but we'll talk about that more in
yeah,
a bit. But
but
yeah,
like, he's a recognizable face with a loyal following. So I think they're going to be like, okay, so that will work, right? Like
yeah,
that is something that we can, especially if you're, some one of the things that he did that I would qualify this maybe as a marketing thing, but like it clearly seems like it's coming from a better place than that. He organized a blood drive for this movie that you could just give blood at
yeah.
the theater where you went, right? Like that's that
That's
that
really
that's a
cool.
really
Like,
cool idea. It works. It's a
it
win-win.
works with the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's a nice thing to do. It gets people excited, and it does also
yeah.
benefit the reach of the movie. And when you're giving people a reason to feel good about going and supporting a movie because it's a little extra thing on top, they get an opportunity to do something, that's charitable as a result. That's a win-win-win. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think
It's
the other thing that they might start looking at, right, is like, I think the success of this is also going to make them start taking the video game adaptations way more seriously. Especially
yeah, they've
they've
already
already been
started
doing
doing
that,
that.
but I think this is there I think this is, the moment, because this is, I think, by far, budget to box office, budget to profit, this is by far the most successful of them. I would like it's got to be, right? Like 10 times the budget. I don't know that they're
Well,
like
hold on.
ratio
I want
wise.
I want to see how much the Super Mario Brothers movie made.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I forgot about that.
Well, just because hold on, let's look at their budget first, just in terms of percentage. So it had $100 million budget. Jesus Christ. Um, but
Honestly,
it
though,
made
like $100 million, that's cheap comparatively to a lot of.
yeah, and it made 1.36. So I think that would be just in terms of sheer numbers the
Okay,
most
yeah, that's
profitable. But
probably
I
the most
do,
profitable.
but to your
Yeah,
point, $3 million is not a lot of money to spend in Hollywood terms.
yeah.
It is for normal people, obviously.
Oh,
But
Minecraft. That's right. I forgot about that, Travion. You're right about that. Minecraft is definitely still bigger money wise, because I
no,
forget
wait,
that didn't Minecraft make like 1 billion?
we're looking it up. Beep boop beep boop. Uh, just shy of 1 billion, so
Fuck.
less than Mario. Yeah,
Oh, Mario made 1 billion? I didn't. Oh shit.
Mario made $1.36 billion.
Oh my god.
Yeah, which I don't know that that's I don't know why that would be surprising. It is a metric fuck ton of money, but of course it did, as far as
It's
I'm
yeah,
concerned. Of
yeah.
course it did. It's Mario. I don't know that the second one will do nearly as well, but it'll do pretty well still. Anyway, so yeah, to your point, like it's not quite as simple as the like, oh, Hollywood hates it because it shows that independent film is easy and this is the model to do it. It's not quite that simple because for
You
the
find
reasons we
just find an
mentioned already.
independently wealthy guy who
Yeah.
also happens to have 38 million subscribers on YouTube, who also
But to your
happens to be incredibly likable and have
yeah,
passion behind his projects.
and the passion. So there's a lot of lessons that could be learned by Hollywood from this. A lot of them really stupid, wrong lessons, like oh, people want more submarine movies. Uh,
although,
other,
although I'm not opposed to a few more submarine movies. Just saying, I
I
wouldn't
mean,
mind seeing a few more submarine movies. I think they are ripe for we could make a few more of those in the near future. I'd be pretty happy with that, as long as they're good.
okay. I mean, as long as they're good, could come after anything. Um, but yeah, I suppose if you're into submarines, no, okay. So the there are a few lessons that would be great if they learned from this. One of them is that like if you took adapting video games seriously and you only gave it to people who were actually really passionate about the video game, you would do a lot better.
Yeah, like imagine how much better Minecraft could have been if the
I
guy like
know.
really
Yes.
cared about, you know.
Yeah, gave a shit about Minecraft fundamentally. God, that movie's terrible. Because one thing you do get from Iron Lung, not just from how Markiplier talks about it, but from the movie itself, is that he really likes the video game. You can tell he likes it a lot, and this is a remarkably faithful adaptation. Some things he added to it essentially because it's a video game you can complete in like an hour. And this is a 2 hour movie. It's too long.
It is way
I want to
too
make
long.
that clear. It
Yeah.
is too long, but we'll talk about why it's too long. But it's clear that he cared about adapting it faithfully, and he did a pretty good job of it. A lot better than most video game adaptations do, actually. So I think that would be a good lesson to learn is that if you're going to adapt a video game, um, you should probably, because you're banking on the audience who likes the video game anyway, you should probably treat the thing that they're excited about with respect. Like, this is the thing that baffles me the most because people like to talk about how Hollywood is so risk averse, but constantly they're going to adapt things that people really like because they're banking on the familiarity and love of that intellectual property and then see fit to completely change it and ruin it. Like, what kind of insane risk taking is that? Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just adapt it faithfully? Now, there are all sorts of ideological reasons they might do it depending on the story, but it's just insane to me that they feel so comfortable being like, yeah, we'll do an adaptation of a video game because we'll have the built-in audience for the video game, and that's great. So we'll
Yeah.
use their familiarity with the surface level details of the video game to get them in the theaters, and then we'll just tell whatever fucking bullshit nonsense story we want to tell anyway.
Yeah, yeah, like Halo.
Like Halo, exactly. Why would you do that? That's
Ju-
an insane risk. Like, I think they could actually stand to be less risk averse. It might be a little counterintuitive, but if they were less risk averse, they would probably adapt things more faithfully.
Well, yeah, it's like the Snow White story, right? Like what happened with
Yes,
that. It's
exactly.
like Snow White is that weird, the product of a weird paradox where they're like, oh, we don't want to do anything risky, so we're just going to adapt the story that everybody likes, that made a, that has a lot of cultural grasp on the audience.
Yes.
But also, we're going to take a gigantic risk by changing everything about it and telling you were wrong for liking it in the first place. Like
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty
schizophrenic.
schizophrenic is a great word for it. I'm glad you said that. Yes. Um So that's a lesson they could learn from this is that what we'll probably see more likely than more submarine movies is more indie horror game
Yeah,
adaptations.
probably.
Because I think Hollywood, if they're paying attention, will be like, oh, this was like a very, very indie horror game that apparently was made in like 6 weeks or something like that. It
Oh, I
was,
believe that.
yeah. Um, you know what I mean, though. This isn't like a big budget AAA Sony story game or whatever, but like, so that maybe they'll pay more attention to those for better and for worse. Definitely for worse. Um, but I think what Hollywood definitely won't realize, they'll realize that like, oh, someone with a built-in like following that really likes them, very likable person. They'll continue the sort of like looking at Instagram and YouTube followers to decide who gets to be in movies thing that they've been doing for a while, but they won't realize that part of what makes this so successful is not that they just put Markiplier in a big budget Hollywood slop movie. It's that that guy did an immense passion project almost entirely on his own. And so people, even if they look at Iron Lung and see where the seams in the budget are and see that like it's a little amateurish, it doesn't quite look as good as a professional Hollywood movie is, but it was clearly made with passion and the story is actually better than a lot of what Hollywood is churning out, and it's interesting, it has a creative vision, it's a faithful adaptation of a game, and it was made just by like a few real people just trying to do it, by the skin of their teeth kind of thing. Like, that appeals to people more than just putting Markiplier in the Minecraft movie too would. You know what I mean? So they're not going to learn any of the right lessons, I don't think.
No.
But there are right lessons to learn here. Absolutely, there are. Because
Yes.
this is good for the industry. Because I think what if indie filmmakers are smart, they'll be paying attention to this. I think indie filmmakers who want to like wallow in misery about how they don't get to be successful filmmakers will look at this and they'll say like, oh, but he already had millions of subscribers, so it doesn't really count. Bleh. They'll be like that about it. But indie filmmakers who are paying attention will be like, self distribution is possible.
Yeah,
It really
absolutely.
is.
It really is. There's a comment there. RJ Hunter says it's not too long for the niche audience it was created for. It was never intended to be a mass media crowd pleaser, which is why the success it has accomplished is even greater. Yeah, I think you're right about that because I didn't hear a single person, a single other person really, in our theater anyway, complaining about it. There was a lot of praise and a lot of like, oh wow, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. There were quite a few who like friends I know who are big Markiplier fans who went to see it and were like, oh, didn't love it,
Yeah,
but they're happy
I
to
think
support him. Right?
yeah,
Is the thing.
everyone seems broadly happy about the story as a meta indie success story. Everyone seems almost universally happy about that, and they should be,
Yes.
right? There are a lot of diehard fans who will love the movie and won't think it's too long. They won't have been bored even once. They'll think his performance was great and good for them. I'm glad they enjoyed it. But this movie is getting mixed reviews. I think you
Yeah.
can't pretend like it isn't. Even people who like his channel might be like, ah, I mean, it's not great. It's definitely not of the like production value quality you might expect, but there's a lot of charm to it. There's a lot of good things in it, which I think is true. I think the length thing, it really is just like there's not enough story for a 2-hour movie here.
No.
There really isn't, as far as I'm concerned. And in terms of his performance, this is the thing. I got some pushback when I mentioned this yesterday, but like Markiplier is not a bad actor,
No, there are
but
glimpses of it where I was like, "Oh, yeah, that was pretty good," right? Like there are certain points where I'm like, I think he's got the chops. I think he's got what it takes. I think really if I were to point to a single like a single cause for the performance, the stuff in his performance that's not very good, and there is quite a bit of it, right? If I were to point to a single cause for that, I would say it's probably because he's directing himself.
yeah,
If he had
yeah.
a talented director helping him, like looking at his stuff
Giving
and
him
like
notes
giving
and
him
stuff
notes
because
and
it's hard
everything.
to wear it's hard to wear two hats at once,
Yeah,
basically. When you're just being the actor, it's hard to direct yourself, and it would have been helpful if he had a good director to help, give him
push
notes and sort
push him
of
a little
bring
bit
out,
further. Yeah.
because I think he has a lot of potential as an actor. But the part of the problem for me is that like this is a really tall order for an actor. Like I,
Yeah.
I think even really talented actors would find it difficult to carry a whole movie like this because Iron Lung is a movie that takes place almost entirely inside of a submarine with one guy. There are a couple other actors who we hear the voices of and some we see briefly on screen, but Markiplier has to carry almost the entirety of the movie, and that is a tall order for even the most talented
Yeah.
actors. So, like you're just putting a lot on his performance, and his performance is like perfectly serviceable. There's some moments where I go like, that could have been a lot stronger, things like
Yeah.
that. But like,
Some of the moments where the big emotions are supposed to be pulled, right? Like especially when he's, struggle like the one that I go back to for like, pretty poor, right? On the grading if I were to give it is the line that he used at the end of the trailer that's like, I just want to live. Is that so wrong? Why doesn't anybody else want that? It's like, man, I feel like you could have done that. I feel like we could have got more out of that if it hadn't been you deciding, what was key there.
yeah.
Like if
This is why
somebody,
this is yeah,
yeah,
this is one of the reasons that I am genuinely, and even though I didn't really like this movie, and we'll talk about, our overall thoughts in just a second, but even though I generally didn't really like this movie, I want to know what he's going to do next because I think if he were directing other actors in the future, or if in the future he's still the lead actor, but he's got another director working with him and sort of like getting the best possible performance, because there's a lot of potential here, especially for someone who's literally never made a feature film like this before. There's a lot to like about it. and like his performance across, if like on average across the board, is like okay. But
Yeah.
that's it. Like it probably needed to be better to carry the whole 2 hour movie that is so light on story. That's the other thing.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I had never played, like, speaking of light on story, right? I had never played the game. I didn't watch the EFAP either.
Really,
So if you
I'm
want
so sorry to interrupt you,
yeah.
but at least it wasn't that weak sauce actor Paul Dano, weakest actor in SAG. True.
Yeah.
What weak
What
sauce,
weak
man.
sauce, man.
Tarantino's so funny.
That time when he sang Ave Maria.
This is not how this was supposed to go. No, I like Paul Dano.
I love Paul Dano, but
I also just really like the Quentin Tarantino just says whatever the fuck he wants. I like that about
yeah,
him,
him shitting on
even if
Paul Dano for no reason. Like Paul
pretty
Dano
funny,
just catching strays for no reason whatsoever. Yeah, yeah, that's
very funny. We like it. We want more of that. We like capital O opinions here, if you can't tell. Anyway, you were saying, Q.
yeah. So I had never played the game before seeing this movie, but I figured like I'm the research guy on the panel, a lot of the time, right? So I was like, oh, it only takes an hour to finish. Hell, maybe I will play it before maybe I will play it before the stream, and then I can talk about the adaptation level and everything. Um, I did not even try. I was a little bit more preoccupied with other things, but I decided to watch a gameplay video of Iron Lung with no commentary, like a full game completionist playthrough of Iron Lung, no commentary. Took about 55 minutes. So I put it at 2 times speed. Game's boring as shit, dude. I'm glad I didn't try to play it. It looks
Not for
really
you.
not for
Not your
me.
cup of tea.
Not my cup of tea. The JPEGs jump scares and the atmospheric spooks, it's not enough to carry even an hour for me, honestly. Not my like, and I was very interested to see what on earth he was gonna adapt out for 2 hours into a movie, because like there's barely story or lore in the game. There's a couple Wikipedia entries that are
Mhm.
kind of interesting, and I think like another thing about this movie that really hits for people, the cosmic horror of like almost akin to, you could say, an Event Horizon or a Warhammer 40K. There's a big undercurrent of that kind of storytelling that people are really into right now. I mean, there is a
Yeah.
surge in popularity in the subculture of Warhammer. Like, people really like 40K's storytelling and lore. If even Moist Critical is telling you that he is listening to audiobooks of the 40K lore in his spare time, like, it's starting to hit into a more mainstream populace, and it's going to be, you're hitting a really an untapped ore, right?
Yeah.
An untapped vein of ore in that atmosphere. And the Wikipedia entries that make up the lore in this game kind of have that to them also, right? Like, it's an interesting premise, and the premise is that
Not so sure it's an interesting premise. Will be
I I
interesting to
I
talk
think,
about it.
yeah, I think, like, the idea, right? So the idea behind it, the premise: humanity has colonized the galaxy. There were a whole bunch of planets that were inhabited, and all of a sudden, one day, every star and planet just disappeared, and only the people on some space stations floating in between were left, along with a couple of asteroids and moons. I don't know what the distinction, like, why the distinction was made between the moons and the planets, but we left the moons, right? And the stars and the planets and
He
all the
said, "All
people
right,
around.
you can keep the moons.
You can keep the
Just
moons, just we're taking the rest. And then a few of these moons, they've found some of these moons, the people who are left.
decades later." I think that's
Decades
worth
later,
mentioning.
yeah,
Yeah.
decades later, after all the stars have blinked out and all of the planets have disappeared, some of the couple thousand, maybe a couple hundred survivors have found some moons with oceans of blood, all like that just sort of appeared on the surface. And
Human blood.
human blood. They find out that it's human blood. The Wikipedia entry in one of the about the blood oceans basically makes it clear that they've studied it enough to realize that it is entirely human blood, right? So they decide to they're struggling for resources. Nothing new can be made, obviously, right? So they decide to explore the ocean, the blood oceans, to see if there's anything on the moons or, like, in there, to grasp onto. And what they decide, how they're
Basically,
doing it, is they're sealing convicts with no training into little iron submarines that are not really meant to come back, and having them take photos underneath of weird anomalies they've detected underneath the surface of the ocean.
because in their desperation in finding this weird anomalous blood moon type of thing, they're like looking for something that might give them some little hope as to an answer as to why everything disappeared and if we can fix that problem. Because otherwise, long term, humanity and all life in the universe is fucked. Essentially, is
Yeah,
the implication, but they don't really tell us, and I think this is actually really important. They don't tell us how far along we are in terms of heading towards like entropy and doom. Like how much longer could human beings survive on their space stations, without finding an answer to this problem. Um,
yeah.
the movie and the game both present it like, oh, well, they're in a rush, so there was no time for training. It's like, I don't know that I believe that
I don't
actually,
think that
but
that makes any sense at all, actually,
no, but
given all of the dangers that could have, like, that would arise just in general ocean travel with a submarine, right? Like, you would expect that if you're sending one person in the sub down, that you pick people who have some level of technical training, at least to keep the thing running, right? You don't want somebody who has no idea what they're doing going
yeah.
down there, and, like, you have limited resources. There's a point in this movie where they're going to talk about how they sent a sub down there with a bunch of resources. Like, we can't build that anymore. We need you to go and download the black box from that submarine. Not sure how that helps with the resources that you spent building it, that you lost because you sent some convicts who had no training down in it in the first place. But we'll move
I
on from
think
that.
isn't the implication that the submarine that was down there that was actually much nicer and not the little like rink-a-dink midget submarine that our boy Simon is in. It's funny that the Wikipedia article describes it as a midget submarine. That just makes me laugh. The more advanced submarine, I think they imply either in the game or the movie, I don't remember which anymore, that was actually manned by technically savvy scientists trying to do research, and that like the successive missions in these small little iron lung midget submarines are convicts for some reason. Basically, they want to have
Yes,
the
okay, yeah,
premise.
yeah, yeah. The SM-8 was not a convict submarine. That was one that actually had scientists on it. Yes.
Yes. Jay Jameson says it's an excuse plot. Sadly, it's written this way to justify the player not knowing anything, or knowing nothing. Yes, I think that's basically true in the game, and I definitely think there's a theme of like, oh, the company says you're expendable kind of thing, and you're a
Yes.
convict, so they don't treat you with respect. It's it's a sort of lesser version of the tropes that are in Alien and stuff like that. But basically, you can't have that and the desperation, like this is a rush job. We have to figure out an answer to this problem before all of humanity is doomed.
You
Fundamentally you
can't do
can't
both.
have both. And so basically, once we're in the sub and we're going around and we're taking pictures of things and we're looking for anomalies, I'm into it. The whole justification for how we get there and how they go about like not telling him anything about how any of this works, all that sort of stuff, which is in the game and the movie, is just stupid, and I can't really get past it. But
It's a
like once
colossally retarded plan.
it
And it does,
is,
yeah, it
but
doesn't.
once we're in there, like so, if we had concocted a different reason for why we're here in a blood ocean looking for weird anomalies and sending expendable convicts, if you want to keep that, or sending people who are heavily invested because this is of the utmost importance because humanity is on the verge of extinction, we're running out of oxygen, like whatever the case may be, either one or the other, that would be better. Because if you go the route with like convicts who you view as expendable, then you could just have it literally be that humanity is exploring the galaxy and they find a weird ocean with a human blood moon on it, and so they send people down to explore that, but they send people they don't really give a shit about, where it's like a work release type thing,
Yeah.
right?
Like this is the thing about it that like really kind of stuck with me too, that I had a hard time buying in, right? Is like you don't have to have it be that the with that level of urgency, right? We don't have to have it be that not only is there an ocean of blood on a moon that we found somewhere, like out in the distant reaches of space that we need to explore. That already sells me on the idea, right? If you're going to send a submarine in to that, blood ocean on the moon, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Sure. And it's going to be kind of spooky and atmospheric and we're going to figure it out. But you've
Oh, and
also
there's a monster down there.
Oh yeah, no,
Oh
there's a
no.
monster. Oh wow. Okay, yeah, like who knows what could be down there, right? That already you've got me. Okay?
Yes.
Having also added on top of it the urgency that like all of like literally all life in the galaxy, all of humanity is fucked because there's literally nothing left. Right? Like there's no stars, there's no planets, there's no people. It's just some floating space stations and like you are boned, right? All of that just makes it worse. Like it makes it harder to buy into the idea that they would
Yeah.
like. And someone asked like I would think barring psychopaths human life would become way more precious with sub 1000 people left. They say that in the movie multiple times. She says like no, we're not just down like letting you die down there. Of course we're not going to do that. We can't do that. We don't There are too few of us left to take unnecessary risks. But the whole plan of sending somebody who doesn't have any training, who is a convict working for
Not
like
only
penance.
not only a convict, but we later learn that he isn't really a terrorist, but they think he, in a terroristic fashion, tried to destroy a space station
Well,
and like,
but we also learn that he is also a murderer.
well, he didn't. It's a little vague, but like basically we will eventually learn that he didn't intend to blow up that space station. He was somehow involved with it, but he didn't intend for that to happen. But they think he was someone who attacked one of their space stations and destroyed it, presumably because they think it would be better if everything just ceased to exist, right?
Yeah,
Like something along those
something along
lines.
those lines. But like they're in that flashback where we kind of find out like, well, I mean he tells us he wasn't really involved in it, right? But in the flashback with the dialogue, we hear somebody saying like, well, when did you grow a conscience? You've killed so many people already. Why blowing up? Like his moment of questioning before blowing up the station is prefaced by somebody else saying like, you're Simon the Butcher, you have a crazy body count, you've killed tons of people, why this? Like, why is this the moment where you're not interested in doing this anymore? And it's like,
Yeah.
that's what.
Um,
That's crazy.
So the larger point being, if that's true, and if they and regardless, if they think that's the kind of person he is, they just wouldn't send him on this mission. That's stupid.
Yeah, they think he's a psychopath who
They think he's a
yeah,
psychopath who just wants to
end
to
humanity.
destroy. Yeah. And that could be interesting in its own right, but they wouldn't send him on this mission. That's for sure. And so, like, the basic premise, and like fundamentally, okay, all of the stars and planets in the universe just blip out of existence all at once. Like, that's a magical premise,
Yeah.
and so it needs a magical solution. And it's the kind of thing, I don't know what it is. Like, some people are clearly interested in it because it's sort of like I know it's like a bleak existential sort of thing, but I hear that and I just don't find that interesting.
Well, yeah,
I'm
and
just
like
like,
I
oh,
hear that and I wonder like what are we gonna do? Like what is one guy in a little submarine taking like with no tools, no training, and nothing but like an X-ray camera? What? How? Like first of all, how are we even gonna figure out like through that? Like as the audience with that as our stand-in, how are we going to figure out through that what happened? Right? Because like I want to know. If you're gonna give me a
yeah.
magical premise like that, I want some. I'm not okay with it just being like it's meant to be ambiguous, meant to make you think. I don't want
I
that.
think that
I
I
will.
think there's a balance I think with basically any story, you're gonna find a balance between what is explained and what is left ambiguous, and it will really depend on the genre and the type of story you're doing. I think, after talking to the EFAP guys about it, Platoon and I were the most critical of it. Everyone thought it was like, no one thought it was great, but Platoon and I were the most critical. And clearly, Mahler and Fringy are like more interested in this kind of premise. And I think really what it comes down to is like how many of the questions raised by the film are you okay with going unanswered? Because for me, there's way too many in this movie. There's not really enough for me to sink my teeth into to actually understand. I would like at least some answers to some of the questions. And basically, we get none. We don't get an answer to why everything blipped out. We don't get an answer to what the creature at the bottom is really. It's the kind of thing that's so vague and ambiguous that it really thrives in the minds of people who like to imagine and think about lore outside of the text itself
Yes.
and invent things or imagine and speculate on what possible things could be, and that for that kind of person that likes doing that, the things they create they will like, kind of by
Yeah.
default. And then they'll associate those good ideas with the thing, whether or not it's actually there's really enough to go on in the movie or not, or whether the movie actually demonstrates it or not. A more extreme bad example of this than Iron Lung is Alex Garland's Annihilation.
Yes. Yes.
Annihilation is the kind of movie that the people that like it like the idea they came up with in their head about what it actually means. That's not really in the movie and is probably not supported by the movie because the movie's so contradictory. This is just similar in some ways. I wouldn't say it's as bad overall. I don't know, but the whole premise is pretty stupid. It's complicated, but it has some of the same problems. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. It feels a little bit the execution here, and like I don't mean to, besmirch Markiplier because I think he did a better job than the person that I'm about to mention in a lot and pretty much, like any of his stuff. But it reminds me a little bit of the Zack Snyder school of filmmaking, especially with Army of the Dead, right? Where like you just throw in a bunch of little ambiguities somewhere in the background, right? And you want your fan base to latch on to like, oh wait, why does that zombie have like glowing blue eyes? What's up with that? Like you never put anything more with that in the movie, right? Nobody questions it. Nobody thinks about it. None of the characters question it or think about it, rather. But you have this idea of like, oh, the blue-eyed ones have this particular kind of different power set or skill set or something, and that like maybe that's gonna lead to something else down the road. Like this movie feels a little bit like that level of ambiguity when with everything that they put in and with all of the
Yeah.
plot bits, right? And I know there's gonna be people who love it. I know I saw several of the people who love it in the theater,
Yeah.
and great for them. But as somebody in the chat mentioned, I prefer when my writing does the writing, not me trying to piece these things together and like draw connections based on hints. I don't like doing that.
I think it's a balance because I know you like Mulholland Drive,
I do,
for
yeah, but
example.
I do
Explain the
like Mulholland.
difference as you see it.
The way that okay, so the way that I see that with Mulholland Drive is that like there's a puzzle where like the person knows the answer, right? Like the person who created the puzzle pieces knows the answer, right? And you can and like they put enough information in there and it gave you enough to work it out on your own, right? Like if you were going to work it out on your own.
Yeah.
The story overall works still in Mulholland Drive. Like you can like it's ambiguous, but it's pretty like it's ambiguous but clear. It is linear. I believe David Lynch when he says that Mulholland Drive tells a linear story. This one, I don't know that I buy that either
It's a lot of
the guy who
It's
wrote the
like the
game.
absence of story.
Yeah.
Like that's part of the problem. It's part of the reason that the 2 hours feels so long is that like we have about enough story for like a short film, really, or like a half hour, maybe an hour episode of television, all things considered. I mean, like obviously, if you cut 30 minutes from the middle of this movie where things were the slowest and not a lot was happening, and it was 90 minutes long, it would certainly improve the film as far as I'm concerned. But really, I think there's enough actual plot to justify like an episode of television or a short film. And it's
Yeah.
interesting, and it can be more. The shorter it is, the more ambiguous it can be. Is kind of a general rule of thumb. Um, but someone mentioned the theory, and that I like this theory too. I think it's more interesting. Is if like, oh, it's not that the stars and planets actually disappeared and are gone forever or whatever, but it's like the stations are the ones that actually blipped out.
Yeah, well, I mean, Markiplier mentions that in the movie, right? Like he says, like,
Yeah, it's
isn't
an
it more
interesting.
likely that that's what happened?
So I need at least one of these, like, all the questions that the movie raises. I need an answer to like at least one more fundamentally,
Yeah,
like, so if we concluded that that is what is more likely to have happened, then it becomes about, instead of trying to like find what was lost or figure out what caused all that to happen, it's like trying to find our way back. We're in a weird limbo and we need to kind of descend into the blood ocean. We need to go down into hell to get back, or something like that. But then that's not exactly what they do. It's so much more vague and abstract than that, you know
yeah. You know,
it's and
like
it
it honestly, you mentioned Annihilation, the movie, but the more that I've sat with it and like gone over it at least one more time, it's also very similar to Annihilation, the novels. They like I fell into that with those books because I was like, "Oh, I really like them." But the more I've gone over it and the more I see what Jeff Vandermeer does, I don't think he actually has a coherent vision for what is really like what is happening. I think he's just kind of presenting ambiguity as a way of hiding a mystery box that he doesn't want to open. You know, like and that's what
there's
this
certainly
feels like.
writers that do that.
Yeah.
There certainly are.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's interesting. But basically, like we said before, excluding like how we get him into the sub, the actual experience of being in the submarine on this weird foreign moon with an ocean of blood on it, that's spooky. It's a little grimdark, but it's spooky. And you're in a little thing and you have a little X-ray camera and you don't really have much in the way of navigation because of the pressure is so high and it's hard to see anyway, but you have this X-ray camera and you have a proximity meter and you have very limited information and you're moving around and you're looking for anomalies, trying to explain what this planet is and what's going on here. Oh, and then there's something down there, right? Like that's interesting. I like
Yeah.
that. And to the degree that the movie is that, it's quite effective. I think the X-ray camera is like a really effective device in the movie.
Yeah,
It's the
it's
best
cool.
thing about it, as far as I'm concerned. The pictures look really cool. I like the way they blip in and off the screen. The sort of like black and white infrared look is really awesome. Um, I do think, all the blood effects and stuff like that are pretty fun.
Yeah.
They
They
literally
used 80,000 gallons, 80,000 plus gallons
they
of
broke a
fake blood.
record, I
Yeah,
think.
they broke
I
the
think.
record for most fake blood ever in a movie. Previously held
Yeah.
by Piranha 3D.
And so like I think that stuff looks pretty good. I don't really love the visual style of this movie with like that, it's very underlit.
Oh,
It's
it's
got a
shot on a
very
red
shallow
camera too, so it's like
shallow depth of field and all that sort of stuff. However, I think they did a pretty good job of making the cinematography varied enough over the course of 2 hours. Considering the tight locations and how limited they actually have in terms of space. They make a lot of really good use of insert shots and close-ups and interesting moments. And like, I appreciate that they realized and they're like, shit, this is going to be really boring if we don't get creative with where we put the camera. And they got creative with where they put the
yeah.
camera. I didn't really love the lighting, but I do like that there's like a color scheme that is unusual. It doesn't look like normal sort of like teal and orange or teal and yellow kind of like desaturated horror slop. It's got like reds and greens that are kind of like, they create a like an interesting like kind of sickly atmosphere that I think works in the movie's favor. Having looked at images of the game, I do wish the interior of the ship was more kind of like rusted
Orange.
like
Yeah,
that.
rusty and
It's got a
orange.
bit more character. I think, in the game than in the movie. But otherwise, I think a lot of my problems with this story are that there's not a lot of story there, and it's very vague to the point of being disinteresting
Yeah,
to me.
there's
But a lot of those problems are coming from the game. And so, it is a faithful adaptation of that. So if you liked that, this movie would be very satisfying for you because it adds some things that are in keeping with the general spirit of the game. And I think he does a really admirable job of that.
yeah.
Markiplier couldn't afford the piss filter. Yeah, exactly. It is nice that it doesn't have the piss filter. Isn't
Yeah,
that something?
good for them. Yeah, I agree with you. 100% on that. I think most of the issues stem from the fact that you are adapting something that deliberately was empty, right? It is
Yeah.
meant to be filled by the imagination of the player. So you don't want to define, like, if you're doing that and that's what people liked about it, which like a lot of people liked it. It's like people are still mad at Charlie Moist Critical for saying that he didn't like the game, right? They still don't like that he didn't like it because he's like, it's atmospheric, sure, but a couple of JPEG jump scares and a lore dump that was added later, in a post update, like a DLC, basically a lore dump computer
Yeah.
that gets added in a DLC. That's not much. It's not much to go on. So for like they did do a good job with that. It's definitely not my kind of story, and the
No.
way they adapted it is very confusing in a lot of turns. I would, and I'm sure the response from people who are standing for it would be, well, yeah, it's supposed to be. Um, yeah, okay,
Well, here's the thing worth mentioning is that like I like some of H.P. Lovecraft's stuff a lot. I like the cosmic horror, and I think it's really a matter of like the things that I like in this genre have a bit more for you to sink your teeth into.
yeah,
There's ambiguity. Like for example, in Alien. Alien is one of the best movies of all time. I love Alien. There's a lot of unknown, ambiguous stuff in Alien. Like, where did this creature come from? What was that ship? Who is the space jockey? Let's ignore Prometheus for now. All those questions are unanswered. But what you do know is that there's a creature that is kind of shapeshifty, and it wants to kill you, and you're stuck in a ship with it, and ultimately you need to escape it. It's much more concrete, right?
yeah,
There's ambiguity around the edges. We don't know really what this creature is. We're learning a little bit about it as we go, but it's a tangible threat. And that's an example of sort of like this sort of cosmic horror setting that I really really like. Another example might be something like H.P. Lovecraft's The Color Out of Space, which I think is it's a short story, a long short story. Um, but it's really, really good, and there's a lot of ambiguity there. A Color Out of Space is very much the template for what Annihilation is.
yeah,
It's clearly what it was ripped off from. But that's a great short story, and there's a lot of things left ambiguous there. But there's more to sink your teeth into. It's less abstract. It's less there. It's about people losing their minds, but not in a way that makes you wonder how much of the movie is actually even happening. It's in a way of like, God, like imagine how it must be to try to grapple with what is happening and what the person is experiencing. Because if, for example, in The Color Out of Space, the what is happening around them is real. It's not a matter of hallucinations or anything like that, but you just don't know what it is or what it wants exactly. You just see the deleterious effects it has on everything around it, you know? And so I really just think it's a balancing act because I do like a lot of this stuff in theory. I like this kind of setting. I like these kinds of stories, but I just need more. I need more to hold on to. It needs to be a bit more concrete for me.
yep, yep.
Did I see the Nick Cage adaptation? No, I didn't, but I want to see it at some point. Um, I've heard that it's not super faithful and that they kind of take it in its own direction, which could be good in its own right. But I really like the short story as is. I actually really think the original short story could make a really strong feature film if adapted faithfully. It would be a lot more like what Annihilation should have been. Um, the Thing, another great example. The Thing
Yeah,
is like obviously the creature is like, what the fuck is this shit? And we don't really know its origin. we don't really know a lot of things about it ultimately. But the thread is very concrete and real. In this, so much of the last act of the movie where things finally actually ramp up and a lot of things are happening, it's like, okay, there's a creature down here and it's messing with his mind and it can communicate telepathically, I think, but we don't know what it really wants. We don't know how it's really connected to everything disappearing exactly. What we do have to hold on to as a life raft in this sea of ambiguity is the experience of this character who's just like, well, despite how existentially terrifying and ambiguous and strange this whole situation is, I want to live. That's what he comes to ultimately, and that's something. I don't want to say it's nothing, but it's just I don't know that it's quite enough for me.
Yeah, not yeah. I, I agree with pretty much everything that you've just said. I do like the ability to leave things ambiguous, but we like there's also the fact that through the middle part of the movie may not like that didn't happen maybe, or like it might have, there's a question too, like we introduced the idea that maybe he's hallucinating because he was knocked out, maybe he's hallucinating because he was running low on oxygen, maybe he was.
He gets some blood in his
Yeah,
eye at one point. And I think that's when everything really starts to go crazy because eventually, by implication, either he's hallucinating in this because he's losing his mind, or what's happening to the ship is that it's turning into an organic creature of some kind.
yeah.
Which is interesting. I need
Like,
more
well, and
though.
that's a very Event Horizon kind of
Yes,
thing,
it is.
like so there's definitely some of that present in there. But I like there's a creature that can communicate with him telepathically that that is quite ambiguous. We don't really know what it wants or what it has to do with any of what happened, or we get the idea, the theory presented by his character that maybe it's the space stations that got blipped and not the rest of the stars and the planets. But then we also are kind of questioning whether or not the blood in the oceans is the people who vanished. I think that that's a pretty I think that that's a pretty it's all
It
human
wants
blood,
you to
right?
think
It
that.
wants you to
Yeah.
think that, right? So it's all human blood, and all the humans disappeared, and now there's four. Well, in the movie, there's just the one, I guess, but like in the game lore, there's four discovered oceans of human blood on on four different moons. So like, there's so many different ways that it could go, and it doesn't seem particularly interested in giving you any clear foothold on any of them. It just kind of wants
Yeah.
you to speculate and then maybe try to piece it together from what you're able to glean later on. Now, I need to ask you this question because I don't know if this was an issue with the theater that I saw it in or an issue
You're gonna talk
overall
about
with
the
the movie.
audio at the
I'm going to
end?
talk about the audio at the end and a lot of the
Yes.
audio in a lot of the the radio dialogue. Um, I could not hear hardly anything. I could not make out words really that were being said at that, especially at the final point. But there was a
It
lot of times where I was like, I don't know if that was meant to be clear what that person just said, but I didn't get any of it, and like,
so I brought this up on EFAP, and there was kind of like a 50-50 split between people who said it was a problem for them and for people who said they didn't have any problem. So
okay,
I think it's a combination of a sound mixing thing and maybe how it was played in the theaters. But it seems like a consistent enough problem that it's just a matter of the dialogue not being clear enough in the final sound mix at the end because there's music going crazy, there's sound effects of the ship kind of creaking and breaking apart and all that sort of hissing and all that sort of stuff. And then not only that, there's multiple voices coming through the radio at the same time, and some of them are getting the weird pitch distortion and some aren't. You know what I mean? There's a
yeah,
lot of sound happening, and it's just not all of it is super legible. And Mahler was like reading through some of the dialogue said at the end that was not clear to me when I was in the theater trying to pay attention to it. And I'm like, oh, it's important to hear those lines, actually. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They don't offer definitive answers, but like I don't think you could make the case that they were meant to not be heard, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So that's probably a mistake, and I would say maybe a big one, honestly, because that was
Yeah.
it was very difficult for me. It's like I mean, really, to be completely honest, I was kind of checked out by that point because I was like,
Yes.
I was sort of looking at it from the perspective of like, okay, well, a lot of similar stuff to what's happening here at the end happened in the middle part of the movie as well, and there's a very like serious heavy implication that that is not real, that none of that really happened with him in there, like that it was all some form of psychic hallucination or manipulation. And so I don't know how much to believe is real going on right now. I don't
Yeah.
know how
It's a
much.
little hard to be invested with
Yeah,
the like absence of like enough to really grab onto in terms of, like you said, there's like six different things they want to imply about the premise and then not really tell you which one it is. So there's so little to grab onto, and there are decent chunks of the movie that are implied to not really be happening. And so if you don't really feel that connected to the character or the premise or trying to understand, you just kind of go like, I guess this is all, who knows? It's
yeah.
a little hard to be as invested
Yeah, and
as you might
there's
be.
also the fact that like, so you know that we find out that the other submarine is down there, right? And so at, at the beginning, he's got a pretty clear objective, right? He's down there to take pictures of anomalies.
Yes.
He finds like a skeleton, what they believe to be a skeleton, right? That is
Hmm.
down there, and he's sent back down to grab a sample of it, right?
To ram it.
To ram it with a like
With a fragile
with
ship.
with a fragile ship and like a giant pokey thing that they mounted on the front, right? Which sure, I mean that seems like it would be counterproductive, you know, to smash the skeleton that you found that is very important to the mission, right? That of
Ugh.
understanding exactly what this is. That seems counterintuitive, right? It seems like maybe even if you were going to design this as a mission to retrieve samples of something from the floor, you might want to
You'd
include
want
like
claws or something.
claws and a
Yeah.
window,
Grabbers. Little
you know, like a
grabbers.
window that is pressurized, that can withstand being under there. You might want to give the person who's operating it a chance to actually look, maybe
I can imagine why, like, being able to look outside and it's just like
just a sea
an
of
ocean
red
of
gooey
blood
blood. Yeah,
you wouldn't be able to see. But regarding the grabbers, absolutely. So
yeah,
the movie kind of relies heavily on like two ideas. One, that this is a rush job and that we didn't have time for training or anything. And like, oh, they just don't have the resources. And it's like, I just don't know that I believe that spacefaring civilizations who are capable of space travel and have enough resources to do all the things that we see them do in the movie don't have the ability to give this little grabbers instead of like a weird pokey thing that you have to ram into anything you want to pick up. You
yeah,
know what I mean? I just don't know if I believe that. I don't know if I believe that they would have such limited oxygen. Like how desperate for resources are they? You got to establish more things,
yeah.
frankly.
Why and like why not because he gets pulled up at one point. You know, as he's down there the first time, one of
Hmm.
his oxygen blocks disappears, and he gets pulled back up, and they just go, "All right, drop him down immediately again." It's like, well, why don't you refill the oxygen?
And if you can't refill him because he's welded in or whatever, then you shouldn't have brought him up.
yeah, like that.
You should have just
That's a
left him
really
down here
silly thing to
until,
do.
because especially they're like, no, you got to go back down now. You're losing oxygen. It's like you shouldn't have pulled him up for this because what did we really learn when we pulled him up?
Nothing really,
Nothing.
nothing
Yeah.
important. Yeah. Um, yeah, some grabbers, some little grabbers, like something like, but like, you know, how are you gonna operate the grabbers without a window? And like, wouldn't you? I don't know. I get that you wouldn't be able to see through blood. I like the X-ray thing, right? But like, is
Hmm.
there a way to do that? A spacefaring civilization, and maybe they don't have it on that ship, right? But like, wouldn't there be a way to do that where he could have a more active visual role in picking up
Yeah.
samples if that's the plan, right? Wouldn't you try? Like, because the thing in the game, right, is like you're not collecting samples, you're just down there taking pictures. And that works in the game because you're just down there taking pictures, you're not bringing things back, right?
Yes.
If you're meant to go, like, and obviously the role of the submarine in the game wasn't thought out as being like, oh, you're going to go down there and gather clues and samples as to like, so that we can figure out what's going on here. Adding that into the movie without changing any of the way that the equipment operates is what creates this clunkiness of being like, yeah, we got a poker on here, ram the thing. Like,
Ram it. I
ram
know
it.
this is a really fragile ship that is already leaking blood, and this is a little rinky dink thing. We didn't have a time to get you a sturdier sub, but also go ram it into that maybe skeleton thing.
Yeah. Um, so like, yeah, they pull him back up and he's down there to do that. That's the first, concrete, thing. And then he gets back down there. The skeleton has disappeared from the coordinates where it is. So now he has to, go try to find it. He's that like basically attacked by something or like a gas bubble, maybe a tide of blood comes through. We're not really sure if it's,
It's a monster.
it's
It's
yeah,
supposed to be.
it's got to be a monster, right? So he's attacked, he's pulled off course, and that now in the second bit he has to find his way back, and he's off the map. Sure, okay, yeah, he's off the map. I don't know why they like wouldn't just give him a full cartography of the thing, but
They
okay,
were in a rush.
yeah, they were in a rush. They
I
couldn't
mean,
even train him.
because you would think
They
you
didn't
could
even
think
tell him he had supplies.
Yeah, I know.
They
They don't
didn't
tell
even.
him anything.
They
They
didn't.
don't tell him that the camera is an X-ray that will irradiate us and kill us with cancer. So please don't
Don't push it. Yeah, they didn't. They
don't push
didn't
it
tell
while
him
we're up.
you've got water and some crackers and cheese in the first aid kit. Just in case you have to be
No.
down there a little longer than we expect. They didn't give him a flashlight just in case something goes wrong with the power that he has to fix while he's down there.
Speaking of the map though, it's like, clearly I can imagine, all right, with their spacefaring civilization and everything, they'd have the ability to like used some sort of detection device to at least gauge a rough map of like how deep the ocean is. You know what I mean? So you can get
Yeah,
that sort of like the vague map that he has, but don't it doesn't really have any landmarks on it. It just has like how high and low things are in certain parts, right?
yeah,
That makes sense. I feel like then you would have that for the whole planet or the whole moon
yeah.
rather.
You would be able to
It
do that.
wouldn't
Like
just be like
if you
that.
can do that through like if you can get satellite images of the topography, the basic topography
That's the
from
word.
like
Yes.
yeah of the ocean from space. You know what? Actually, hold on. No, if you have satellite images that can do that, I don't believe that you can't put a viewfinder or something that like actually lets him watch where he's piloting. That he has to navigate by the little
Yeah.
blinker things
Yeah,
that go
I'm
on
I'm willing
car
to accept
mirrors.
certain things to like keep it like the video game and keep you with like less information. Like sure. I like, but when you pile too many of them up, it's like, oh, this is
Yeah.
a really dumb mission. You should have been able to do more than this.
Yes. And Dr. Diddler is saying if we're bringing science into this with no sun, any liquid in the solar system would be frozen solid, so the plot can't happen. Yeah, but like, and I feel like the answer to a lot of any of the ambiguities, and it's kind of the same with Shelby Oaks in a way, right? Is just like, oh, a demon did it.
It's
Oh,
magic.
Cthulhu did it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a magical premise.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, obviously, the human characters should have access to scientific equipment. The magical premise is that somehow there's a rogue moon that is floating away from whatever planet and solar system it was in, because all of that is gone, and now there's just a rogue moon, and it's covered with blood. That's like this. That's the magical premise you just have to accept. Beyond that, the human characters should be able to interact with it with their scientific technology and tools they have available and treat it like, okay, there's blood on a moon, never mind how it's there and how this works, we should be able to treat it like it's an ocean of blood, and they should have the technology essentially to be able to navigate a bit better. you
yeah.
know they should be able to map the whole planet,
Yeah, and you would think that if
essentially
it's
the
as
whole moon, the
important as
whole
all
moon.
of this, right? Like they would take some
it's
time,
it's
right?
existentially important, we learned. So yeah,
Yeah.
they should, if they have nothing about how they really go about
Yeah.
this makes any sense.
And so as he's trying to like find his way back from the uncharted depths of the ocean, right? Like he's using the coordinates. This is when like it starts like he starts to hallucinate. Like he sees some monster demon thing. Now he sees that immediately, upon dropping into the ocean. He sees it immediately. There's some weird monster person
Yeah.
in the submarine that vanishes when it needs to. But he sees it even more so at this point. He's like he starts to hallucinate that he's found like that somebody else who's been living on the submarine, a different submarine, who was sent down there. He starts to hallucinate her voice coming through the radio. He hallucinates, a lot, or like, and is this even hallucination, or is this all like telepathically communicated via whatever eldritch force is living down here? The monster maybe luring him with like a predator, like by using the over here kind of thing, to
Yeah.
get people to come. What we don't That's never made clear because eventually we'll find out that days have passed and he feels like it was
Yeah.
only a couple of hours. He also sees,
A lot of these things are all
yeah,
good, like, on their own, but when you pile them all on top of each other, I get to be like, "Well, then I don't know
I don't know
what
what the
is
fuck is
even happening."
happening, man. And so now, like he's that's happened. Basically he gets out of this after a dream, dream maybe, I don't know, question mark dream, where he sees a
The
giant,
weird
like a
eldritch
weird
god
eldritch
thing.
god that like he's bound before and like drenched in blood and everything. And then like he wakes up and finds out that actually he's, been missing for days and they thought he was dead, but sorry, we didn't know that you were gonna make it. We're not bringing you up anymore, actually. So I was just calling to see how you are. We're doing yeah, like she's reaching out to him through the speakers, asking him where he is, only to tell him, "We're not looking for you. We just wrote you off, kind of, and we're gonna just say like." New orders, we're not coming to get you, sorry. Right? So like I don't know why she's looking for him in the first place, but he basically convinces her because he found the SM-8, the important submarine. He's like, "Hey, I found that and the computer down here that you didn't want me to have access to, but that somebody who left a note who had been in here before, maybe, I guess, somebody else who died in this thing before left a note that said to cross the wires and it turned the computer on. And I got close to the submarine and it wanted to download the black box, but I didn't have the password. So I like if you want want me to go get that, you have to promise to come and pick me up after I do." And what she says is like, "Oh, that submarine has technology on it that we aren't even able to build anymore because, like that was our big important one. So go download the black box." Because that's like that's another one where I'm like, okay, well, like he's not going to get the technology back. He's not going to bring the submarine back and give you a chance to do this, like run it back with the good sub. He's just going and getting you the data log of what happened to them when they died. And that doesn't seem anywhere near as useful. What does it matter what happened to them when they died? But either way, he goes back and gets it. There's some garbled audio that I could barely hear about how maybe the person on that submarine was drinking the blood and it was making her go crazy. And then there's blood, like, yeah, there's a lot of confusion in what's
I
happening
agree.
here, and I don't think like any of it really. I don't think you can, unless you're headcanoning most of it. I don't think you can really draw any conclusions about what happens in this movie at all, really, because by the end he gets the data and he decides that he has to save his data, but he's also mutating. The ship is mutating into a living organism, I think. There's the idea that the ship is
Yeah,
becoming
definitely.
alive.
Basically, what you can conclude definitively is that it's about a guy in this crazy, wild, wacky, grimdark, extraordinary circumstance, dealing with a whole bunch of stuff he can't understand and choosing to, instead of just dying, sitting down, he's going to like fight to try and preserve what little he can that might help the humans in the future fix this. And so, despite all the existential horror and the lack of questions and all this ambiguity, he's just going to fight to live. And it's like, okay, it's not really a lot for me, but it's something. Because you're not getting any definitive answers, and I don't think you can reasonably deduce definitive answers
No, I don't think
to any of these questions,
I
but
don't think
that's not
there's
really the
enough.
point.
Yeah, I don't think there's enough to like. It's not so like talking about the differences between this and your Mulholland Drives, right? I don't think there's like Mulholland Drive. I think there's plenty that you can latch onto and solve the problem. With this, I don't think there's even close to enough.
Yeah.
I think that it's just a puzzle that's not meant to be solved. It's more about vibes and theme. I mean, there's obviously a
Well, I think
theme that
sorry,
he's
the person who likes this movie a lot will say that yeah, that's the point, and that it's interesting that you don't get an answer to that. And I would just go, okay, well, I don't agree,
yeah.
but if you like that, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. If that's what you're into, if you like, I think people have pointed out it's like Dark Souls storytelling. If that's your thing, fine. It doesn't gel with me. I don't like it very much. Um, yeah.
Mordaka asks if we have seen Underwater because it is has some Lovecraftian elements. It's like Alien, but there's I won't spoil it. I have not seen it, but I've heard about it, and I would like to see it at some point. The EFAP guy said that it was surprisingly good, not amazing, but like way better than its reputation would have you think.
Yeah. So people are asking about some of the lore from the game in the comments, and I didn't go through the whole thing, right? But it's been decades since everything vanished, and the space station that has captured Markiplier, they are the commie. That's the commie space station. They are the collective, the Brotherhood of Steel, basically, the collective, but commies. Um, they don't like Eden, the space station with the tree, the last tree. I don't know what happened with that. I heard there's some dialogue about, the last tree is dead, but we will be the soil that feeds the new trees and everything. I don't know what all's going on over there.
Like one of them is a communist group who wants to find out what the answer is and try to reverse this or something like that, and the other group is like a weird doomsday cult that just says, "Ah, well, we're all fucked, so I guess we should all die." And so Simon Markiplier is part of that group that's the doomsday cult, and they're involved in literally just trying to destroy space stations and human civilizations and resources and stuff like that because they think, it's all fucked. We're just gonna die and then go on to whatever the next life is, kind of thing.
You know what?
And
Mordaka just gave us the like all of the questions about why this this is such a retarded plan that seems as if it's actively working against solving it. Solved by, well, they're commies. There you
yeah,
go. Yeah.
I honestly,
Actually, you know what?
this movie's brilliant.
This movie's brilliant. I'm more on board for it now. Like as a critique of communism.
That's what all the blood is for. It's red,
Yes, yeah. I mean, there's also the metaphor too, like, because like he keeps asking these questions of like, why is it so hot in here, right? Like it's like I'm being
It's
boiled
the warmth
alive,
of
right?
collectivism.
It's the warmth of collectivism, exactly.
Sorry, I beat you to it, but
Yes,
I just got
You
excited.
stole my thunder. Yeah, it's the warmth of collectivism.
I did steal your thunder. I just got so
Sorry,
excited.
you redistributed my thunder.
Yes, it's
Yes.
our thunder
From
comment.
each according to his lightning, to each according to his thunder. God. Yeah.
That's the long and short of Iron Lung.
Yeah, really. I mean, like, there's a couple.
It's
other
not my
things,
kind of
yeah.
movie, really, at all. I appreciate the story behind it as an indie success story, and I'm really happy that it did well. Genuinely, really happy. And I would like to see him do something. I don't want to see him do the exact same kind of story in the future, obviously. But even if it was some sort of indie horror type thing, as long as there's a little more concrete story to it, I would like that a lot. And I'd like to see what he does, and I think he'll improve, and I think there's reason to be excited about what he does next, whereas I think there's no reason to be excited about whatever Chris Stuckmann could possibly do next.
Yeah.
And As it sits in the overall pantheon of YouTuber feature films, not bad. Not bad. You could certainly do much worse, and people have.
Yeah.
Is it at the top? Certainly not.
No. No.
Certainly not.
But you know what? Again, good for him. Good for
Yeah.
him. I'm happy for him. I'm glad he had a lot of fun with it, and I'm glad that it's working out for him. I think people say this sarcastically. This actually could not have happened to a nicer guy. So good for him.
Yeah, yeah. Not ironic.
Not
Not
ironically,
not a joke.
actually, like he kind of deserves this. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to see that it's working out for him and that he's sticking by by his principles.
It's a labor of love, and you can tell, and that has a certain amount of charm to it, for sure. Absolutely. I don't think I'll ever see it again.
No, I'm not going to watch this anymore. I don't feel the need to try to piece through it. I don't like it. There are no answers presented. I have to like make it up myself. Um,
Yeah. I'm just not interested in doing
yeah.
that. Personally. Yeah. Do we know? I guess here's a question. Do we know of any other um YouTubers who have like famous ones that have like talked about making movies? Because I know the Critical Drinker,
Drinker has, right?
well, he did that like 40-minute short film, which is a very odd length for a short film. I think he sort of hinted at maybe it was kind of like a pilot for like a TV show kind of thing, which would make more sense of the 40-minute runtime. But and I know he's doing more short films. Obviously, Mahler has that short film kind of under Drinker's umbrella coming out, and I'm genuinely excited for that. Are there any other ones that we know of?
Fred.
Fred?
Fred the
Is Fred
movie.
still going? Is Fred 12 gonna come out?
Well, yeah, he launched a franchise, man. He made more Fred movies than Fast and Furious movies. That's pretty impressive, isn't it?
Fred, the movie.
Did you say Fred 12? Are there actually 11 of them?
Oh, I was just riffing. I didn't know. I don't
Oh,
know how many
I
he's
thought
done.
you were being serious. I thought you were
No,
about to
I'm
make me
not being
watch
serious.
that.
I don't think there are 12 Fred movies. Oh my gosh, John Cena is in Fred the movie? I didn't know that. Oh, that's incredible.
As your GM says, I was expecting a football movie for this stream. I did against my
Why
will the
would
other
you
day. I don't
expect
know why you would expect that, but
that?
I did against my will the other day watch Necessary Roughness, starring Scott Bakula, and oh boy,
First, Necessary Roughness, that's the name of
that's
the
the name
movie?
of the movie. Yes.
Oh, Necessary Roughness. That's so funny. Oh my gosh, look at that poster. Can you
I will put
can you
the
please put that
send that to
poster
me.
on?
I'll put that poster up on screen.
I see a couple different versions. We'll go with this one.
Sinbad is
Necessary
in the movie as well.
and Jason Bateman and
Jason
Robert
Bateman, yes,
Loggia.
Robert Loggia. Someone asked also, Ephraim Winslow asked, "What is our take on David Lynch?" Out of curiosity, I think we've talked about that before, but we kind of love that David Lynch does him without any apologies. But
Did him.
did him.
Rest in peace.
R.I.P. Great one. We
He's got
love
some
that.
absolutely great stuff, and then he's got some duds too.
Yeah.
He has a cult of fans who think everything he does is, God's gift to earth. But when he's good, he's great, and when he's not good, he's annoying and great. But I like him a lot as a character, and just like I don't know, as a personality, he seems like a cool guy. I'm very glad he existed. I'm very glad he made the movies he did. Some of them are really good. Some of them are
Yeah, yeah. Yes, there's the poster for Necessary Roughness. The funny thing about this movie to me was that any one of the a million threads that make up the main A plot of this movie could have been its own movie. Right? So like we have Scott Bakula because this school like for some reason they have a shitty college football program, or like I don't know exactly what the plot is because I came in like 30 minutes into the movie. But they have a bad college football program. So they go to Scott Bakula, who's like 35 years old and working on a farm, but he still has eligibility, so he can play quarterback on their team. In Texas college football. So we've got the rookie, right? With Dennis Quaid. But then we have Kathy Ireland, who's the kicker. She's a woman on a male football team. That's another thread that could be its own movie, right? Like that's its own movie. We have Sinbad, who I believe in this, like I don't know if it was Sinbad or if it was one of the other black actors in this movie, because there are a couple of them. There's a team of convicts that are playing against the college football
Oh, so it's The
crowd.
Longest Yard
So it's The
also.
Longest Yard also, right? Then there's Jason Bateman, whose dad is is the coach or something like that, and it doesn't believe in him, and he's the backup, and so that's a movie on its own as well. So there's just so many threads, and it's all tied together by like some of the laziest blue humor that you've ever seen in your life. Um, and like it unbelievably shitty and forgettable, but like people say in the comments, considered a classic among some crowds.
How's that for your football movie review? I
So there
hope
you
that was
go.
everything you
Go
hoped
watch
for.
that before the Super Bowl.
Necessary roughness, starring Robert Loggia. Okay, a couple things. First of all, super chat. Thank you very much. Name I can't pronounce. What do you guys think of season 1 of True Detective and Quentin Tarantino's recent criticism of it, since you're on the topic of cosmic horror? Hugh, first of all, have you heard Quentin Tarantino's recent
Oh no,
criticisms?
I haven't. No.
All right, so while you first tell what you think overall of True Detective season 1, I'm going to pull them up.
I love True Detective season 1. I think it's a masterpiece. That's basically the long and short of it. I love True Detective season 1. It is it didn't take long for that writer, and I can't remember his name right now, but it didn't take long for him to give in way too much to his incredibly nihilistic and cynical worldview, because the second season fucking sucks. But in this one, I mean, Matthew McConaughey gives an all-time performance, all-time great, unbelievably good as Rust in that show. I think there are certain plot threads that maybe deserve some more attention, and get pushed to the wayside. But overall, I think it's the perfect miniseries. And it's a really really good. It's a great mystery. It's got a great solution to it. It doesn't lean too deep into the supernatural, but it gives you enough there that it's ambiguous about what it is. It's a masterpiece. I think it's great. Um,
I really like True Detective season 1. I'm not quite as fond of it in terms of calling it a masterpiece, but I really like it. I think the ending left a little something to be desired, but I was thoroughly into it up until that point. Really good, great performances, really great atmosphere, great like setting. The mystery is really interesting. I just wanted a bit more to the overall mystery beyond the specific guy who did it, because they we imply a lot of grander things about a conspiracy, and you know what I mean. I just wanted a little more, mostly because I liked it. You know,
yeah,
it's one of those kind of things. I wanted more because I liked what they were doing so much. It's good. Quentin Tarantino, on the other hand, has said that he called the first season boring and he failed to get into it after trying the first episode.
that's okay. All right. Well,
He-
you know what? I do believe this is the thing, right? Is like I do believe Quentin Tarantino thinks it's boring, because it
oh yeah,
is
I believe
boring
yes.
for Quentin Tarantino. By Quentin Tarantino's standards, it is boring, right? Like it's a slow burn, and I don't think he likes that kind of thing. I would be like, if you were to bring him and put him down and sit him down and watch like that movie Burning, right? He'd probably fucking hate it.
Yeah,
I think that
yeah.
movie's great. I think it's a real, well, pretty good, maybe I should say. I toned down my my praise of that one. But I think that movie, especially with the ending, is worth the slow burn, right? And I think True Detective does the same thing.
I tried to watch the first episode of season 1 of True Detective, and I didn't get into it at all. I thought it was really boring, and season 2 looks awful. Just the trailer, all these handsome actors trying not to be handsome and walking around looking like the weight of the world is on their shoulders. It's so serious, and they're so tortured, trying to look miserable with their mustaches and grungy clothes. So more of his hatred was actually directed at the trailer for season 2,
Yeah,
which
wait a
perhaps
minute.
we could
That's
say
yeah, wait a
fair.
minute.
But he
That's
said he
he's
tried to watch it
angry
and
at
he thought
Colin
it was
Farrell.
he only watched the first episode of season 1 and thought it was really boring. That's all he really had to
Well,
say
I
about that.
believe that would be like because like I said, slow burn and it's not his cup of tea. I believe that he wants things to
Yeah.
be more fast paced and colorful
You've seen
yeah.
season 2. Was his description of the trailer accurate to the show?
Yes. Oh yeah. The season 2 is atrocious.
Yeah, yeah.
It really I was like kind of trying for the first few episodes. I tried my hardest to defend that season. And I couldn't do it anymore. And if you go back and like because it gives you nothing. It's so bleak and depressing. You got Vince Vaughn in one of the worst roles he's probably ever played because he's just bummed out the whole time. He's just bummed out and depressed and kind of moping through his lines the whole time because that's what they wanted from the character. He doesn't get to do any of the normal Vince Vaughn funny stuff. I mean, now, granted, he plays the straight man most of the time, but he has no humor coming from any corner of that show. Colin Farrell, I love Colin Farrell. I wanted him to be great.
Yeah, I like
He's
Colin
really
Farrell
not.
a lot. No. Their mustaches and grungy clothes. Yeah, I think Quentin Tarantino is really fun to have around as someone who will just say like whatever the fuck he wants about anything. I think we need more of that energy in Hollywood, not less.
Yeah.
And so even when he has takes and I'm like, that's the dumbest take I've ever heard in my life, Quentin, I'm glad he said it because it's fun.
Like when he said that the aliens in Invasion of the Body Snatchers are actually kind of the good guys because he's not one of those people who believes that your soul makes you who you are, your intellect makes you who you are, and if your intellect can be reborn in a perfect form, and you like fuck off.
Shut up, Quentin.
Shut up.
Well, don't shut up because it's funny, but you're so stupid.
Top
You're
Gun
so
is the
wrong about
gayest
that.
movie of all time. Well, he was right about that.
Anyway, we another message from Matthew Leach says, "Did you end up winning that film contest a while back?" That's the first question, and then question number two, and is that why you're making a full length film? So let's start with question number one. Well, so for those who don't remember, there's a short film on the channel. It's called Hostile Takeover. You can see it on the channel. It's right there. There it is. That is a short film I made as part of a film festival competition thing where you may have heard of the 48-hour film festivals where you have literally 48 hours to make a short film with certain prompts and criteria you have to include in it. This was like that except that you had 14 days. You had 2 weeks instead of 2 days, right? And so we cranked out, and oh god, it was a lot. It was a nightmare to try to make. Even it had to be at least 7 minutes long. I think ours was 13, 14 minutes long, something like that. And we only had 14 days to make it. And it sounds like a lot, but it's really not a lot because with all the planning and prep you have to do, because you can't start writing it until you know what the genre has to be, because they waited until the last minute and they're like, all right, the genre is thriller, and and the theme is conspiracy theories. Now go. And so then you have to start writing it, and then you
Yeah.
have to start planning it, and basically you only get 2 days to shoot, and then you have to do all the editing and time for it to be done. So it was a crazy thing, but we made it. And so I'm proud of it for having been made in 2 weeks. I think with that restriction in mind, it's pretty good. And that was part of an overall competition that they were going to do 4 2-week sessions of over the course of a year, and they would take whoever won each of those and pit them all against each other and choose one from that, and the winner would get funding for a feature film. Ooh, isn't that
Ooh.
exciting? So I'm like, oh, well, if that never happens, at least we made something, right? Well, uh, they never even finished those other four
No.
like sessions.
Oh.
They just stopped doing it. They just stopped advertising it. They haven't mentioned anything on their social media accounts. The people that ran this little thing, they just gave up on it apparently. And so I'm like, oh, well,
Well, I mean, you
I guess
won.
that means I won
Yeah.
because our film won that little session
You won
of
that
it.
leg, and then all the
Yeah,
other legs forfeited. So by
therefore I won.
definition, you won. Now that means, however, right, that there is no budget for a feature from
Not
that
from this organization, but
organization.
considering their like shadiness and lack of reliability, I don't know that we would have wanted to
Uh,
make a movie with them either way. But
we do have
we are making a
we
feature
are
film
making a feature
anyway.
film, yes, and this time my name will be on
This they
it.
will be on it. You know, it's funny. Originally, I was like, you know what? We're gonna, this is something that we've written the script for. The script is done. We're working. I mean, we're working on other passes. We're making it even better. We're working on the budget. We're still in pre-production, but we're planning to shoot this October. There will be plenty more to say about what kind of movie it is and what you can expect as we go. Originally, I was just going to just drop this on you guys once it was much further along and be like, "Hey, guess what? We made a movie." But then I was reliably informed that that's actually a really bad marketing strategy. Just not telling people.
Who could have guessed that
Who could have guessed?
playing it that close to the chest isn't working, isn't going to work.
Yes. So instead of doing that, what we're actually going to do is I'm going to, I was partly inspired. I said this yesterday, Hugh, as well, but I was partly inspired by Chris Stuckmann, who said, "Oh, I want to make videos sort of explaining the process of indie filmmaking and helping other indie filmmakers make their films a reality." And then he literally never made any of those videos.
Oh, did he? Is that actually how?
That's something he said he wanted to do and is really passionate about doing, and then he literally never did because now he's releasing 5-minute episodes of the SpongeBob movie with a gambling ad in the middle or whatever he's doing now. And so I was like, you know what? It would be cool if we did that.
Yeah,
Essentially, there's a lot of there's advice and there's videos you can find on YouTube, but maybe there's still a lot to be desired from it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start releasing shorter, more regular videos, sort of going through the process as we do it, giving helpful information about, navigating film tax credits and distribution deals and, locations and casting and fundraising and all the things you might want to know, and eventually maybe self-distribution, all that sort of stuff. Things we've been talking about today and things we'll talk about, things that we have to learn about anyway because we're making a feature film. And so as we learn about it, we're going to try and share that with people, and then we'll reveal more information about this movie. But what we can tell you now is that we are making a
we are.
a low budget independent horror movie. Ooh,
Ooh,
spooky,
spooky, very spooky.
spooky. And we are currently planning to shoot it in October, which means it would probably come out next year sometime. So there'll be plenty of time to tell you more about it. But that's the long and short of it for now. We're making a movie and it's going to be pretty fun. And we'll be making more content related to that. Still continuing to do streams on Sundays, every Sunday that we
Every Sunday
can,
that we
obviously.
can, yeah. I've got
And
some things to
also
clear up
that,
over the next 2 weeks with my place that I moved out of, so that might get a little precarious, but we will keep you guys updated as we come up with things to talk about.
yeah. And so you can still expect the videos that have been teased that are unrelated to the filmmaking process, like the video on One Battle After Another, and eventually Devs Episode 5. Those are still on the way. But while we were doing all the work in order to prep this movie and get it off the ground, we'll be pretty busy with that. So instead of having very little content to share, we'll be sharing content about that. How exciting! How cool is that? So. Uh, yeah, stay
Yeah.
tuned for more of that. Thank you for joining us on this little chat about YouTuber horror movies. You can see the connection now, can't you? The thematic connection all coming together. Um, yeah, we appreciate it. All the fine comments in the chat and the super chat that we just got. Thank you very much. Matthew Leach says, "I know you haven't covered video game movies, but they'll likely be the next big thing. So any chance you can cover the Super Mario Galaxy movie in April?" I
Oh, you
don't
know
want
what?
to.
Just for you, just for you. That $5 really pushed us over the edge. Yeah,
You know what? All right,
fuck
you're
it.
right.
We'll
Can't
watch. Fuck
argue
it.
with that.
Let's go. We'll watch Mario Galaxy in April. We'll talk to you fine gents all about it.
About that and other things, in terms of Sunday streams, you can expect more streams on Disney 2D animated films as we continue doing that, and more older films, choice older classic movies. Since not a lot of good movies are being made these days, it's always fun to go back and look at the good stuff. And so all that and more and new films as they're released on the channel. Stay tuned. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the super chats and your fine jokes and contributions in the chat. And we'll see you next time, whenever that is. Goodbye, friends.
Goodbye. See you on the Iron Lung. Isn't
God
that
bless
yeah? God
America.
bless America. Go Patriots.